All right. So this would make it if I recall correctly, the 18th official Spotify episode, which, not too bad. But also, technically, if I do release this as its own separate article, that would make it's the 31st. So,
Really?
I kind of had a little bit of a runway before I got to both hear the episode you got previously featured on, but also just me in general, just using this as a creative outlet, just talking to people about things I'm interested in.
Okay, is that what made you want to start one?
Yeah. Just like start out with introducing yourself, and then you go by what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Brook'l Miller. I have a couple different. One second, Randy. Sorry. I have a couple different jobs. I bartend and DJ at a strip club. I bartend at another bar, and then for my day job, I am a rep. Actually, don't want to say what for because my other jobs interfere, and I'm not supposed to do those. But I like to keep myself busy. I have a big dog I just adopted. He was getting into my fridge, is why I just had to yell at him. But yeah, I enjoy. Lately, I've been enjoying going out. I feel like I had like social anxiety for the longest time until I did like what's it called when you just like exposure therapy. Yes, to going out and being public, and it feels a lot better now. So.
Actually, wait, that was quite an honest and extensive intro. I already knew that you would be a great feature on this, because when I heard you speak on that Whistle Pig podcast, y'all went for about 3 hours and a half.
Yeah.
The fact that you had that much to say surprises me, to be honest, because most people I hear on podcasts, they sort of, I can tell that after a little bit, they're struggling to have some juice, but you just had it in you, man. It's like you were built for this.
Oh, yeah. I can talk, which is crazy because when I go out and about, I'm usually pretty reserved. I feel like people will approach me only because I'm a bartender and I see so many people throughout the day. So people will approach me and be like, oh, Brook'l, hey, how are you doing? And then I'll open up. But for the most part, when I go out, I'm usually pretty reserved and I don't really like to say much. Somebody called me a short asshole today, so it's funny that you say that.
Well, to whoever that person is.
Yeah, I just didn't have much to say at the time, so.
Yeah, I already can tell that there's some weird preconceived notions about social norms and what is and not what is or isn't viewed as proper, and talking is very much one of them. For whatever reason, people expect you to just talk just because, and I very much align with the system of, hey, if I don't got much to say, you won't really hear much from me, and chances are, if I don't got anything in common with you, I won't be talking to you either, and there needs to be no offense with that. It's just that if it feels forced, why bother?
Oh, exactly. I definitely would dabble in that for the longest time, just thinking I owed people a conversation because they wanted one. But the longer I've worked at the strip club, it's just like it is draining of my energy. And if it's not something that I personally am interested in, I'm not really going to take part in it. And it's not even personal. It's just like draining my energy. And I don't feel like doing that for your sake.
Okay, so I guess we definitely have a good jumping off point to go off. Because for me, a lot of what I do is very social at its core, right? With the whole podcasting thing. And that was a surprise for me, if you will, because when I started out, I was exploring this venture as a way to both create things and put information out about what I do and what I'm interested in. It occurred to me that a lot of people were doing it, but not a lot of people were really that interested in talking to people, which is kind of paradoxical, right? Like, why why would you run a podcast if you don't care to be social with people to begin with? And then it occurred to me that, a lot of people that are currently trying to get into the podcast game, it's mostly a clout thing. And it's really a way for them to build a platform for themselves, which is I'm not going to knock on it, but I think podcasting as a format offer things that other formats perhaps don't, like say books and even to an extent videos on YouTube, because it's interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it allows you to explore different perspectives that typically you would not really be exposed to, which is pretty neat, That's why personally I found myself drawn to that as a concept.
Yes, I totally agree. And like even what am I trying to think of? Like when you address a situation, it starts with a C. Confrontation. Even confrontation can like bring on really interesting conversations. I've found I used to be so like deathly afraid of confrontation. I just be like, just ignore it, like brush it under the rug, everything will be fine eventually. But once I decided to, like face confrontation and just like address it, it introduces you to like another perspective. Like maybe you're just thinking of it the wrong way or a different way, and it like eases my mind now, just confronting things instead of ignoring it and just thinking, well, I'll worry about it later.
I see. So the line of work that you do forces you to be in contact with people that perhaps can be unpleasant at times, because it reminds me of my time working as a pizza chef at a New York joint. And I remember very vividly a time where a guy, probably in his early 40s or something, he came in, started to buy people around with drinks, which is not atypical given the kind of setting it is.
Right.
And then at some point he got a little too comfortable by putting his hands around the waitresses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He even got to a point where he started to even touch them in inappropriate places. So we don't have bouncers in pizza shops typically, but we had this big ass like guy that handled the furnace of that establishment, and he's like pretty bulky. Mm-hmm. So he hopped from behind the desk, he pounced on the guy and tossed him literally through the window. Like a
oh my goodness.
Yeah, like
wow.
That's the kind of thing you would typically see in movies, but it's just like, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I very much relate with the whole confrontation thing, because like that poor waitress didn't really know what to say at the time.
Yeah.
And given that a lot of what she's doing literally relies on getting tips from people, she didn't want to be that unpleasant to the guy. Mm-hmm. But that's where the other guy stepped in. He was like, well, if you're going to be a dick, I might as well show you what's up. So
exactly.
He threw his ass out the literal window.
I love that. So obviously I've been on the waitress's side too, where I was like, oh, I don't want to be rude, even though you're disrespecting my boundaries, and I'll just like laugh it off until you get the point. But there was a moment in time where I was transitioning from just bartending to DJing, and when you're DJ, you're also manager. So I overlook the whole first floor of the club. And it was a moment like that's where I realized I had to accept confrontation, because it was like I no longer can just laugh it off and walkie-talkie a bouncer like, hey, I don't want this guy in here anymore. I had to do it myself. I was like, oh shit, okay. But I'm super glad that it did teach me confrontation, because I realized it's not like you're not being mean when you're confronting somebody. You're just letting them know like, hey, I don't like this, it's not okay. Or like, hey, that's not funny even. Like sometimes people think grabbing people or something in a certain setting is funny, and it's okay to say, hey, it's not. Which that was a big growth moment for me.
So how old were you?
I just turned 27 last week.
Oh, okay, so we're the same age. Oh, wow. I both didn't expect that, but also in hindsight, it makes sense listening to you talk about these things you talked about on the Whistle Pig podcast. Because the guy who hosted, I don't know his actual name. I'm going to call him Whistle from now.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically, when I heard him speak on other episodes, he struck me as someone who's somewhere in like his middle age, I'd say like 30s or something. And also someone who's very thoughtful about just the world he lives in, which is fairly common about, the whole podcaster scene. It's usually people that are self-reflective that go out of their way to talk to different people, So I'm curious to know more about this person in terms of him introducing you to the podcasting world. What was that like?
So he is actually my cousin. His name's Jarrell. We were really, really close when we were little. Like, what we would do is always play outside. Basically, our grandma would have us go outside, which I totally understand now that I'm growing up. Like, go outside and play. We would fish, catch snakes, all sorts of outdoorsy things. And I feel like from 22 to 25, I lost that. And I was just focused on relationships, work, and I don't even know, like clout maybe. I don't even have it, but that's what I was focused on. So I've kind of circled back. I had my canon moment, and we're becoming close again, which I'm so thankful for. But he asked me to be on. I don't even remember our first one. I've only done 3 with him, but the first one I think too was 3 hours or so, and it was just like, wow, I have so much more to say. So we did 3 of them. I'm glad that he keeps wanting me to be on them because I do feel like they're interesting conversations, and although we're family, we do have very different perspectives on a lot of things and different opinions on a lot of things. So it's nice to see that even when it's your own blood.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me too was his willingness to ask you about very womanly topics, such as the whole idea behind having guy friends versus having girlfriends. That's not really the kind of things I hear on a male podcast, to be honest.
Yeah. But I think that those should be more common because obviously I work in, this is going to sound contradicting, but I work in a like mostly female dominant field. Obviously the strip club is mostly women in there, but I deal with men mostly. So my brain is just going like ping ponging back and forth. Like, how do I deal with this situation? How do I deal with that one? And then for my day job, I am one of 2 women working there. So it's very different. So I am constantly wondering, like, is this because the female and male brain is different, or is it because we just work different? I don't know. So I do love talking about that. Not with just women, but obviously with men to feel or to hear the opposite side of it. And I'm glad you listened to that episode because since then, the girlfriend that was mad at me, we are like really good friends now. Totally squashed the beef and we're good.
Yeah, you know what? That's something I've always been curious about from a cultural standpoint. It's interesting to notice the behavior of people on social media. As someone who's done quite a fair bit of photography work, and that photography material includes a lot of very attractive women in there, right? And I remember the first time I started to blow up off of that work, I've been getting a bunch of interesting replies from people from, hey, baby, how you doing? To come have a drink with me. And I'm like, do these people not know that this is a guy that wants this account?
That is funny. So you would photograph women?
Yeah. Well, I didn't just photograph women. It was at the time that was the bulk of my material because that was the surrounding I was in. But yeah, like I took a lot of pictures of people at the beach, people hanging out, people just talking or candids and whatnot, and I would put these up. But because of the fact that the social media algorithm, for whatever reason, tends to focus on what's attractive and what's typically on the lighter skin tone of things. So yeah, like they started to really blow up. So that got me a lot of unwanted attention by secondhand, because of the fact that a lot of people that use social media that are guys, they're very thirsty, which I understand. I understand being thirsty. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But I never really, until that point, it didn't hit me how thirsty a guy could get. That they wouldn't even bother doing the research of seeing who's running the account. They'll just mindlessly and casually reply to someone and say, "Yeah, baby, you're attractive." Or,
yep, like.
So that's an accurate experience, you would say, huh?
Yeah, that's funny you say that, actually, because I've recently been thinking that that's exactly what I want to do, is photograph the girls. They do have a photographer right now, but I will be so honest, his work is good, but I think the girls are much more attractive than he's capturing, and I take really good pictures, and that's something that I want to start doing, is taking pictures of them at the club. And there's a manager of another club close by that wants me to do it, and he just gave me a camera to do it. So I'm super excited to start that whenever I do. But as far as the comments, that's really funny. I go back and forth between loving that and hating that, because I'll get some every day. It's just like, please, will you send me this picture? Or, yeah, I hope you have a good day. And it's like I go back and forth from, I love that because I feel, it sounds wrong, but I'm being honest, I feel valued. And then I also hate it because it's like, I'm not here for you. I'm just here. So, I don't know. It's a back and forth.
It's very tricky, you know. I'm someone who, to the best of my ability, I don't put much of my business out there. So I don't know whether or not I'm attractive enough to get that kind of attention. Although I do remember a time where I used to post selfies a bunch, and I wouldn't get comments, more so that I would get people hitting me up after the fact in real life saying, I saw that picture and I really liked it. And it never really went anything beyond that, because these were people I actually knew, not strangers. I think the standards for what guys put up with and what chicks put up with is a little different, but I've seen chicks get a little out of hand too. You know, I've seen this TikTok. I've seen this TikTok of a guy. He's like a lumberjack kind of person, and he like cuts like tree trunks for a living, I suppose.
Okay.
And he would post those videos online, and for whatever reason, all his comments are full of people, predominantly chicks, saying, "Yeah, daddy, split me up like that." And I'm like, "Whoa,
oh my God.
That's
yeah, that's a lot."
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to handle that kind of attention, because for me, a lot of what I do is document technology, art, and culture, and I try to look at it from a more human perspective, not so much talking about how much money, Apple, the company, made that year, or how many people signed up for whatever new app that just launched. I more so care about the social impact of these things. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's something that personally I've really, in a lot of ways against my will, paid attention to, because it's so prevalent online, this idea that you can just casually give someone attention, and a lot of the times, unfortunately, that attention can be unwarranted,
Yes, definitely. I feel the same way, because I do sometimes feel like I would do well in a social presence, like some type of platform. I feel like I should maybe start posting TikToks or something. But at the same time, like you said, I don't know if I could handle the constant comments or like unwarranted opinions. And I do, like in my personal life, do pretty well brushing it off. Like I really don't care what you tried to say to me. I'm brushing it off as you say it. But online, it's just hard to accurately portray yourself, because people will take it at their level of understanding, and I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's why I personally went out of my way to not interact with TikTok people too much, because TikTok people, they like to dogpile a lot. And it's very easy for them to take stuff out of context, so I'll mostly interact with stuff that more so catered towards a technical interest of mine, as opposed to something that's more on the social or political side. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I'm not interested to have these conversations. It's just that I don't find it productive to talk about political stuff on a platform that's essentially built off of dopamine addiction, where people feel entitled to ratio you, and then it's gonna be a back and forth of like yelling at each other, you know, like
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
Like the lives where it's one side versus the other, and it's like whoever gets the most gifts wins. It's like, that is crazy to me, because I don't know. Obviously, it's like you happen to have more people watching than they did. It doesn't mean your argument was correct. It's just, I'm not sure.
So does that mean that we're getting old, that we're seeing things as they are and we just don't want to partake anymore? Or is it that we think so differently that now we're like the outsiders now?
I don't know. I do think that I'm getting old, because for my birthday, I worked the bar, and everyone was like, how old are you turning? And I said 27. And they're like, oh, really? I didn't think you were that old. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Well, I am. So I really do feel like I'm getting old, because I also already had my like growing up era where I like hit the ground and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I like feel like I blacked out for a little while. And now I'm just like, I don't care. And if I do, I know it's because it's benefiting me and my soul.
Yeah, that's crazy that you say that, because a lot of the folks I interact with on a regular basis are part of the creative community, and even in there, there's like an age thing going on where you're supposed to make it by a certain age, or else you've seen as washed out. And women definitely deal with this a whole lot more than men do, because I've seen a lot of, quite frankly, not that creative dudes just blow up off of something like at a fairly old age, and no one really bats an eye. But God forbid, like a lady that like is 35 like blows up, and suddenly people are gonna be like, damn, your time's ticking here, like you sure you're gonna be here to do this for very long? I feel like actresses put up with this a lot too.
Yeah, I do too. Like I know Steve Carell, he didn't get famous until, I don't even know how old he was, maybe 40s or something. I feel like that's what he is now. I'm probably being dramatic, but totally understand what you're saying. I also agree with women, because actually Whistle Pig and I talked about this on our last one. Men, for the most part, or maybe not even for the most part, but there is a tendency to like the younger women. So it's like you have less time to figure it out. And if you do figure it out, run with it.
Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to social media conventions, I mostly keep to myself, you know, as you probably can tell. I don't know if you took the time to look at my profile at all, but I don't really post much about me. And even on my own private account, I don't even do that as well. Or not anymore, at least, because something shifted in my head sometime, I think, after I turned 23 maybe, where, for lack of a better term, I really don't think people give that much of a shit about what I feel or what I have to say, so I stopped sharing it. And I know it sounds kind of messed up, but for me, it's more of a self-defense mechanism where I'm not inviting people unannounced into my life unless I let them, you know? It's more so of an active decision to not let people see every single behind-the-scenes moment of my life. And that's something that I'm a huge critic of when it comes to social media behavior. People share way too much. I mean, there's no reason why I should know about whatever ex, cheated on you like that day or, stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like too personal.
I totally agree. I recently read a thing that says if you're easily, what did it say? Easily provoked or easily controlled. And I totally aligned with that. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but totally agreed with that, because at a certain point in time, it was like when I was behind the bar, people would literally enjoy making me mad because I would give them a reaction. Like, don't yell at me because I'm going to yell back. That was an era. But anymore, it's just like, you're not worth it. I'm not going to let you get into that sensitive side of me. But I don't know. I just don't care anymore. It's like, why would I let you affect me in that way?
You did mention that at some point you were a little ball of rage, like how's that going?
Really well. Like, I don't know what exactly happened. I think, so I was in love with this boy, for like a year and a half. And I don't know if we were like twin flames or what, but we did everything together. And then come to find out, like a year into it, he was telling everybody that I was his cousin. We're not actually dating. And it just like really, really affected me. So that is when I hit the ground. I was like the lowest point in my life right there. I'm completely over it now. Like we actually see each other often and it doesn't faze me. But at that moment, that's when I was a little ball of rage. Like, everything affected me. It's going a lot better now because I don't allow people into my head like that anymore. I've been completely alone. I am a little bit scared of that. I'm not sure if I'm alone because it makes me happier or because I'm scared of it. I don't want to be scared of it, but as of right now, it's working out, and I prefer to be happy. Like, I know people enjoyed seeing me angry. They're like, ooh, I like that shit. I don't like it. If you like me, don't provoke me to be angry, because those things don't add up to me. You can't have feelings for me and also want to see me upset. Doesn't make sense.
Honestly, this sounds like textbook narcissistic behavior from people that egg you on like that, and sorry that happened. It's just, unfortunately, there are people out there that, for whatever reason, that's what gets them off. And
Yeah.
I dealt with that in capacity, unfortunately, with someone who would really take it to the extreme where they would turn it physical. And there's this weird dynamic where, I'm an almost 6 feet tall guy, and there's this little, like 5 feet something lady trying to nag me and trying to start a fight, and he would swing at me at times, and I'm like, do I show him what's up, or do I walk away, or do I handle it? And in these instances, it can get really difficult because from the outside looking in, if you make the wrong move, you look like you're the bad guy, right?
Yes, definitely. When you react, then it's all of a sudden it switches to it's your fault. It's like, you were barking at me. I'm sorry that I reacted, but I'm also not.
Yeah. And unfortunately online too, that's something I've been noticing more and more in terms of a cultural war of sorts, where there's a regular man at trash thread going around, or bitches or this, bitches or that. And I'll avoid those like the plague, to be honest. Because one, it's the same recycled bullshit talking points I keep seeing every day.
Yeah.
That, bitches are gold diggers, or that men just like to sleep around. And I'm like, who do you people hang around?
I totally agree. Obviously the wrong people, but I have definitely been one of those girls that were like, all men are stupid, all men are trash. Oh, stop it. But looking back, I literally was surrounded by the wrong ones. And I was also not emotionally healthy enough to be attracted to the right ones. Like, I just didn't address my childhood trauma or any of that yet. So I was addicted to the chaos. And that's why I thought men were trash, is because that's what I was putting myself out to, is these trashy men that had nothing to offer me. And then when they would give me nothing to offer, I'd be like, ugh, men are trash. And it's like, girl, they're not. They actually have things to offer if you are going for the right ones. Same with men and interested in the wrong women, whatever. But
yeah, some people I feel like can get a little too over their head about selecting partners or even finding partners. You know, I feel like for me, finding partners is not exactly the hard part. I think it's more on the connecting side of thing, because I'm someone who, for better or worse, I think very deeply about things, and that's why, by extension, I don't talk as much. You know, like I don't find talking about how the sun rose that day appealing or satisfying. I'm more so interested in getting to know people as people and what makes them tick. And I get it that not everyone owes you that kind of access, if you will, but I also think that part of living in America as someone who was not born here, for me, that was a weird kind of culture shock, because where I'm from, we're accustomed to communal spaces, you know, like I remember playing domino a lot outside with people, and these were mostly strangers, you know, these were not really people I knew all that well. And every so often, like, we would end up having like a casual talk turn into like a whole life lesson, and that was dope that it all emerged from like a simple game of dominoes. But then here on the other hand, like maybe you go to a bar or something, or maybe like an event of some kind, like a music event, like maybe there you'll meet someone you have like that kind of conversations with, but even then there's no real connections beyond that, aside from, cool, it was nice to meet you, on to the next adventure. People feel really disposable out here.
yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's why I enjoy going out alone, and not even like letting people know. I'll just show up alone and meet new people. Not that I want to form a relationship with them, but I just really enjoy the random, vulnerable conversations that people will just word vomit to you because maybe they needed to, or it was casual for them. I also went to a concert alone last week, and then last month. I loved that too for the same reasons. It was like at both of them, certain people around me kind of like just adopted me into their group. It was really sweet. It's nice to see like the human mind working in wholesome ways like that.
So that concert you went to, that was Drake's, right?
Yeah, Drake was last week. It was Drake and 21. And then the one last month was Don Toliver. Okay,
so hot take time. I don't get the hype with Drake. Why is he?
And why is so honest?
Wait, why is he famous? I don't get it.
I might even regret saying this, but I regret going to the concert. I had more fun at the Don Toliver one. I think I'm just such a fan of Drake because I DJ at a strip club, and there's not a dancer there that doesn't dance to his songs. And there was, once again, going back to when I was only focused on relationships, there was a boy that I dated who like was down bad for Drake. I think he had a couple Drake tattoos. Everything was Drake. And I kind of adopted that into my own life. I'm not sure if I would have gone to that without that. And I do kind of regret spending all that money on it because I had more fun at a concert that I genuinely liked the person rather than just everybody around me did.
Oh, I bet. It's just so funny to me that, I mean, again, don't take it the wrong way. I'm not hating on the guy's success. If anything, he's done something groundbreaking here. You know, like, to my knowledge, it's not many hip-hop slash rap artists that are at that level of fame, you know? Maybe Tupac or Snoop Dogg or Lil Wayne, but
I love Lauren.
oh yeah, like my friends were obsessed with him when I was growing up. I didn't get the hype then, but I do now. I definitely do now. But yeah, but Drake specifically, I don't know, man. I think for me the disconnect comes from the fact that this is a borderline pasty looking kind of white guy who's talking about how tough he is and how like he's gonna shoot up your crib or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you're from the suburbs and you grew up with a rich family. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I feel like he's pretty goofy. So that does feel weird in his music where he's like, you know, talking about shooting whoever and whoever. I don't know how easily I'd buy that. I mean, I'm glad I went because he does have such fame and whatever, but I think I would have rather saved up my money for like going to see SZA or I don't even know who. I'm sure somebody else will come soon that I'll want to see. But I just spent so much on seeing Drake.
How much was it?
I spent $800.
Oh, that's like almost a month's rent, dude.
I know, but that's also what I made on my birthday, though, so I justified it. I was like, wow, I strangely made enough for a Drake ticket. And other people from the club were going. I didn't want to go with them, so I just got my own ticket. But
oh, man, I wish I had known sooner because I would have been like, yo, just fucking buy a film camera with that money.
I should have because I want to start taking pictures.
Yeah, you could have literally treated yourself with like some cool ass like film stocks and shit. Because right now, I don't know why, but film photography is making a weird kind of comeback.
It is.
Everyone and their mom is trying to get into it. And I'm like, that's cool, but remember the fucking OGs who paved the way for y'all little ungrateful iPhone bastards.
I know it. Yes.
So hilarious. When it comes to your relationship with fame, you know, like think people you look up to or people that you know that look up to other people. Who's like a name that comes to mind that you really, really like?
Lauryn Hill. SZA. I don't really listen to Megan Thee Stallion, but I do like what she does for her fans with schooling and whatnot. What I like about Lauryn Hill so much is that she is quiet and humble. And she has an album that is still being awarded. It's like, girl, you did that. I don't know, Rihanna. Definitely. I'm saying all women. There's definitely some men in there, but Leonardo DiCaprio. I appreciate him because of what he does for the planet. He has such a like little eco voice online, anyways.
So, like, what about his relationships with people? What's your take on that? Because the big joke is that as soon as like you turn 21 or whatever, you're too old for him.
I know. It's the same thing with Drake, though. Actually, he showed up like an hour and a half late to the concert, and somebody behind me was like, he's probably in the hall chatting up some 16-year-old. I was like, ooh, that's tough. But at the same time, he does have some history with that.
It's true, because like I remember the biggest high-profile case of him being exposed for doing it was when he hit up that Stranger Things girl. I don't know what.
Yeah. I don't remember her name either right now.
Probably Millie Bobby Brown.
No.
But yeah, it's just wild to me that like fame gives you weird levels of access. I've seen a video on YouTube of a guy pretending to be famous to see what happens, and it was very funny to see that all he really had to do to sell the illusion was have a bunch of people stalking him around, yelling his name or his made-up name anyway, and people coming up to him and freaking out and doing all these like things. And he was going to this weird fashion event and whatnot, and people just let him in. Literally, they just let him in because
I totally believe that.
Yeah, the fame, quote unquote, to match that event status, if you will. And I don't know, for me, fame, especially in the American context, fame is such a weird thing for me to deal with on a regular basis, because I'm currently in this weird in-between zone where I'm in some capacity in touch with famous people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of what I do when I'm not handling, dealing with this platform in the podcast is I'm involved in the music industry, and by extension, the entertainment industry. And most recently, I've had the opportunity to attend a bunch of private conferences hosted by the manager of Tupac. And
oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here like, here I am talking to the literal person who was responsible for making Tupac who he is, and now I'm listening to some wannabe clout chaser with like 12K on TikTok telling me that I'm not famous enough for them, for me to feature them on my podcast, which is very hilarious for me to hear.
Yeah.
And everything about those interactions feels very transactional for me. I feel like if you don't have
if
you don't have a certain following count, people won't take you as seriously nowadays.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really have a following on any platform, but I could not imagine having any sort of fame, because even in my little Lansing town, any bar that I go out to out here, I hate saying this out loud, but I'm going to say it because it's reality. I don't have to pay cover, and when I do walk in, somebody will know me because I bartend at the busiest bar down there. Oh, Brook'l, I want to get you a shot. Come hang out with me. Do you want to go over to this bar after? And I struggle with relationships right now anyways. This is kind of why I've just been like dead set on being alone, because I don't like when people see that and then approach me, like if it's a stranger or something, because I want it to be authentic. I don't want them to just be approaching me because they're like, oh, everybody knows you. What's up? What do you do? I just want it to be like a authentic reaction. So I could not imagine everybody knowing me rather than just like the regulars or the other bartenders or bouncers downtown. I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I will say though, on the topic of people hitting you up, do you think do you prefer to be hit up, or do you more so prefer to hit people up? Because for me, it's a little bit of a mix where I'll show up places where, depending on who's in the room, I'll actually act totally disinterested, and in a lot of ways, I'm not really faking it. It's just that it's part of my nature where, because of the fact that I'm involved in the industry a lot, I will end up coming across people who may or may not want to use you as a way to find their next leg up in the industry, right? That's kind of how it
works. Exactly.
So I sort of hang back and I just let people do their thing, and whoever ends up talking to me, then I'll just drop a little bit of a bomb on them to kind of test where they're at mentally.
Oh my God, it's the same thing.
And then like see how the conversation proceeds from there. But for the most part, I'm not that I'll shamelessly just hit people up just because, and just ask them about the most random things.
Yeah.
Go from there,
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple of things. I tend to do both. I'll keep to myself. I don't really like put myself out there and start conversation. But at the same time, I do prefer to, like, if I do want to hang out with you, or if I want you to sit next to me at the bar, I do prefer to be the one to be like, come here. Otherwise, I'm so like in my own space, I feel like it's kind of like interrupting my alone time. Not that they were to even know that I'm having alone time. It's just, I'm out. How am I supposed to be having alone time when I'm literally out and about? So I totally understand that. But It's funny that you drop a bomb on them so soon, because when I do start conversation, it's usually something like pretty off the wall, just to see like, can you keep up with my chaotic ways of life? And if it doesn't go well off bat, and I'm like, well, probably not. And that's okay. I'm not upset about it. Just probably not.
You know, there's this, for me, it's weird because on one hand, I very much enjoy talking to people, but on the other hand, and that's probably the first time I've even said this on the record, but you ever got the feeling you're surrounded by nothing but NPCs who just go about life and just don't really ask themselves questions about why they're there and why they do what they do?
Yes, and that's why I like to approach them left field and be like, are you using your brain right now or no? Because sometimes people are just moving mindlessly, like, I just need a shot, I just need to find my friends, I just need to pee. But it's like, what else is going on in there? So I do like to come at people left field. I can't even think of a good example right now, but my friend Logan, he also makes music. He's like, if I ever make a movie, I'm going to have you be in it so you can ask those stupid questions. Thank you. I actually appreciate that.
Yeah, the kind of things that I've heard you say both in here so far and the Whistle Pick podcast is that you're someone who lends itself really well to just conversational gems. That's like the best way I can put it. It's just every so often you'll say something that I kind of have to go back on and take an actual note and say, yo, I need to say that line. That was a good line.
Thank you. I haven't been smoking recently, but when I do smoke, I have a journal actually that I will just like dig through my brain and write down, because I was, like I mentioned before, so afraid of confrontation. That included confrontation within myself too. So I like just wouldn't even ask myself questions like, why do you think that you have daddy issues right now? Come to find out, I don't. I just thought that I did and I was avoiding it. It's something completely different. And I found that out because I asked myself about it. So I just write things down a lot, and I try to bounce that off of another thing, and then it'll take me to another topic, and dig through my own brain to try and better understand other people.
So one of the things I've been doing for the better part of, let's say, the last 6 months or so is experimenting with technology in unusual ways as to allow myself to access places in my mind that I typically would not be able to. And I'm sure you heard about the rah-rah with ChatGPT by now, yeah?
I didn't.
You said you didn't?
No, I did not.
Well, okay, that's the first. You're gonna be the first person that is not in the world I'm in.
Right.
That's gonna be an interesting take. But basically, everyone in my circle, the creative community, the tech community, and really the art community in general, they're all up in arms about this AI stuff that's been coming out. Damn. Now I'm finding myself struggling to even start with like a coherent sentence, because on one hand, part of why it's a big deal is that these new tools that are coming out are allowing you to do things that are unusual. So for example, I could go online right now and I could ask a little AI thing to search things about you, the person, your name, where you from, and chances are I'll get a hit. Yeah, chances are I'll get a hit. You know, like assuming that you have enough of a digital footprint, I can find something. Actually, let's test this right now. So I'm going to prompt it real quick about your username, right? So you go by please don't I'm scared.
Yeah, on Twitter anyway.
So who is please don't I'm scared on Twitter, and see what it comes up with. Okay, it's thinking. Oh, by the way, I'm using Bing for this if you're curious to try it yourself later.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find any information about Please Don't I'm Scared on Twitter. Okay, let's try another one.
All of my other platforms are Lil Earthling.
Yeah. Okay, tell me about Little Earthling with a N, not a G, right?
Yep, no G.
No G, okay. Cool, let's see what it comes up with next. Oh... Okay. I'm sorry, but I couldn't find any information about Little Earthling.
Oh, I'm actually happy about that. I was scared because my name is so specific. It's Brook'L that it is so easy to find me on Google. Not that I'm like out here applying for super professional jobs, but it's...
Well, let's try the actual name itself since you do have that showing up on your IG. So who is Brook'l, and go from there. It's thankful. Okay, so it's a well-known British adult model, an Instagram star, and TikTok star, and OnlyFans star will get a popularity.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's definitely not you, unless
It's
you're
not.
talking to someone famous and I don't know it.
Nope. There is a Brook'l that will often come up when what is she? I feel like she was in a TV show. Hold on, I'm gonna look her up now.
Tell about the Whistle Pig podcast. Yeah, I kind of want to illustrate the point I'm trying to make, because if it doesn't know about the person, then it's kind of pointless. Oh wait, okay, never mind. So when I ask it about the Whistle Pig podcast, it's telling me that it found the Whistleblower podcast.
Oh,
Which is not that one.
no.
So you see, that's funny, because if I look myself up, right, and I ask it what is the Whiz podcast, I'm gonna get a hit on that one. So let's see what it says. Okay, searching for Whiz podcast. I couldn't find any information about Whiz podcast. But
Maybe that's a good thing.
well, actually, no, hold up. So okay. It's just like stuck in generic mode right now, because this is like one of the caveat about these AI tools. It's like they'll talk to you on their default setting. They talk to you like they're like an NPC and shit. And then you kind of have to massage it a little bit to give you some answers. But on this one, it says, I couldn't find any info about the Whizpill podcast. However, I found a podcast called Whizpill that discusses arts, culture, and technology. That would be me. And the podcast is available on various platforms such as Spotify and YouTube. Is this the podcast you're referring to? Yes, that's the one. Okay.
So right now you're teaching it, right? By answering that question.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, a lot of these tools, they function like that. They learn from your behavior and they try to predict what you're about to say next accordingly. That's where the whole hype about that comes from. You know, a lot of the people that I know, they keep thinking that this stuff is going to steal their job, essentially, because everything I just searched for right now, I could have done so with the Google search, but I didn't. I just had the machine do it for me. So people are taking some liberties with that statement and interpreting it in a way where it may or may not lead to some crazy things happening to the job market. I don't know, like what's your take on that? Like, I know like you're not very heavy into the tech side of things, but I'm sure like
I'm really not. I would like to be. I'm just not well versed in it. The first thing that came to mind was when, I don't know if you remember when McDonald's put those kiosks in the lobby and you could order.
I remember those.
That's what it's giving for me, is when people were mad, like, oh, this is taking people's jobs. I don't know. Obviously, it's a plus for the businesses, less people they have to pay. Not that they, for the most part, not that most of them treat their employees well anyways. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really have an opinion on it. I know that I did see something on Instagram today where some company got rid of like hundreds of their employees because the AI was doing, or was outperforming them. I was like, oh, damn, is it actually outperforming them? Is it gonna like be able to learn well? Like, I know there's human error, but is there going to be AI error? And if so, is that going to be like just as bad, if not worse? I don't know.
Yeah, just in general, AI as a topic of discussion, it's one of these weird kind of in-between things where both experts and lay people are talking about it because it's been so ingrained into the public consciousness, you know, with all these popular movies that talked about AI or robots. RoboCop is a good example of it, you know, like people don't think of RoboCop as like an AI kind of movie, but it is. And it's this weird exploration of character where they talk about what would happen if you were to revive somebody and you just inserted something in their head that wasn't them, that was something else, that was a machine. And that was the proposition behind that movie. And one of my favorite AI movies, or I guess AI themed movies, is the one that Will Smith played in. You know the one?
I am not a movie girl, so no, I don't.
Damn, I need to give you a short movie list then.
Yeah.
The three top movies that you should be watching right now to really get hip to what the movie scene is like is Everything Everywhere All at Once. The second one would be, this one is gonna be a little bit of a curveball. You should watch Ip Man. Ip Man is a martial arts movie about the guy who trained Bruce Lee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the last one I would recommend you check out should be an animated movie, and I'd say it has to be the Spider-Man movie that just came out.
Okay. The newest one.
Yeah, there's I think the value for each of these movies comes from their cultural impact, obviously, but also the kind of, you know, that this those gems you'll be dropping in casual conversations, you know, like I think you'll find a whole lot of that in these movies as well.
Okay. I just wrote them down.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Why do you not watch movies? Do you just not have the time, or just like not really a hobby you fell into?
I never really allow myself to sit down. I don't remember the last time I sat down on my couch, but when I did, I was like, I haven't done this in so long. I just feel like at the same time of like not having many friends, I have a lot of, like you said, transactional friends, and I feel like I owe them, I need to stop at their bar, have a drink with them, give them a tip real quick. So they keep doing that to me, or I need to go visit this spot so I still have that connect for that bar if I ever lose this job. I'm just doing that. I'm constantly networking. So I never really allow myself to just sit down and breathe.
I see. You know, that's something I definitely feel like we could talk a bit about, the whole networking concept, because you're a chick, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I'm a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but connecting opportunities comes easier if you're a chick, yeah?
Yes, I do agree. Not so much with my day job. I do find some struggles in my day job for that. But for all of my other jobs, yes. Currently, I'm the only girl bartender at the club. So it's even better for me, honestly. And the only girl DJ. And it works in my favor. People love that. So it does do really well there. And I come across so many opportunities when I'm out and about. Like, that's how I ran into the opportunity to start photographing the girls. I brought up the idea, but he was like, oh, I have this, I can't even remember the model, but really good camera just sitting in my back room right now. There's money to be made. You can use it. Let me know when you need it. Or, oh, you want to do this? I have an extra pole you can use for her and take these pictures. And somebody always wants to connect you to something. And I love that. But at the same time, I never really take them up. I kind of just always I have a need to have that accessible to me. Oh, nothing.
I see. One of the platform I publish my writing on is called Substack, and that's a community of people that is big on the whole networking thing. Mm-hmm. Because as writers, one of the main struggle that you'll run into is that you won't really find people who care to read your shit. And even if they do care to read it, they won't care as much to share it, which is the whole point of putting writing out there, right? So it's been interesting to hear their take on the whole matter and what it looks like to do good networking and bad networking. And I remember there was this lady that wrote a piece about her life right now as a almost 30-something person who's been in the business for a minute and came to the harsh realization that, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this one here, but she's been collecting phone numbers the same way one would collect Pokemons. It's like, cool, I got this one here and this one there and that other one.
Yep.
There's never really anything beyond that. And it's been, in her words, a graveyard of numbers sitting on her phones.
I have the exact same thing. That one for me is a time saver because it's much quicker for me. My motto behind the bar is if it's going to save me 0.3 seconds, I'm doing it. So it is much quicker for me to act interested and say, oh yeah, I'll take your number, write it down. Give them a sloppy piece of paper, have them write it down and it go nowhere than it is for me to keep saying, no, I'm not interested. No, I'm not going to text you. Don't even bother because they're going to keep fighting it. Okay. Oh, are you sure? Come on, I'll take you to dinner. I'll give you whatever you want. I'll do this for you and that for you. It's like, I don't care what you want to do for me. I'm not going to text you. So I also have that graveyard. And it's because it's just easier. It's quicker.
That's interesting. Yeah, because on one hand, I did notice over time that the way people socialize has changed a bunch. Maybe I'm crazy because I've seen people tell me about this events they're going to, and I'm like, how the hell did I not know about this? And come to find out, there's a private group chat where people are all clued in, and you're not part of the group. So if you're not in that group, then yeah, you won't know.
Okay. So how does that group add others then?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Do they just pick someone at random, or do you have to be already part of the clique? I don't know. But what I will say, from personal experience, as someone who both runs group chats and also I've been added to a few myself in the industry I'm in, it's very interesting to see what people use these group chats for. Some people will mostly use it as a way to pass information along that's relevant. For example, hey, there's this event that so-and-so is going to be there at, and y'all should be going to get that next opportunity or whatever, right? Mm. Or you'll have the other ones that are more so technical focused. It's like, that's a place that a bunch of experts are there and you can ask them anything about whatever topic and they'll answer it at whatever time they find that question.
Okay.
Or there's the last one that's a bit more kind of a mix where people just really hang out there and talk on a regular basis and just check up on each other and ask each other how they're doing, how's the work coming along, what the work looks like, can they see it, can they get critique and feedback and shit like that.
That's nice. So,
yeah, but for me it's kind of weird because I'm someone who I don't like being online 24/7, so I'm not exactly sure how well something like this would do for me. But I do see the value in it. But I also see that from a social standpoint, it really puts me at a disadvantage because most time I do get social, it's either through these things I'm hosting, the podcast, or going out in person and meeting people. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'd say more than 80% of the time, it'll lead to a graveyard situation where you meet someone that you think potentially is interesting, but by circumstance, there's nothing that really clicks there. So yeah, just people kind of go their separate ways and there's no real follow-up from that point.
Yeah, I have a really, really hard time with that, actually. I view everybody as temporary. Also, forgive me if I'm like completely off topic. When responding to your answers, sometimes it's hard for me because I'll only respond to the last like 4 words that you said. But I have a hard time with people being temporary and it being a giant graveyard because of the social life out and about. People are so, like, I could go from seeing somebody every day, every shift to never again. And I won't know why. They just got fired for no reason. It's like, okay. And it's like, we never check up on each other again. We never know what is up again. So I have a hard time with that. Like, even getting like real close with people is tricky. So I guess online, I'm a really bad friend online. I have a friend that moved to Tennessee and I've been a bad friend to her since, because it's like, anymore, it kind of feels like out of sight, out of mind, which I feel terrible about. I do still think about her, but at the same time, she's not right here with me. I'm not able to go catch coffee with her or something. So it's been a falling out. And I don't even mean it to be like that, but I guess that's just how I have relationships.
Yeah, well, they'll consider this, a blueprint on how you should do things, but for me, it became very obvious very soon after I graduated high school that things would really change in a really major way for me, and I had to stay on top of the friendships I had, because a lot of these people that I was actually close to since high school, I still have their phone number either directly or I have someone that they know that I have a direct contact to them that I can then hit up and say, hey, it's been a minute, like how's so-and-so? So these are more what I like to call the catch-up people, the people that I need to see how they're doing after like a bit, whether it's, a year or 5 years. And then there's the more consistent people who I would consider to have played a pivotal role in my life. And in my case, that would be during my time in New York, I ran into this painter who is from the UK actually. And we met at a bar, which is fairly common given the New York setting. And I was telling her, hey, like, I just like your vibe and I want to talk to you. I was like that blunt about it. And she was chill about it. And we started to talk some more and we kept in touch and talked here and there or went to events together at some point. And then after a bit, the New York lifestyle caught up with me to the point where I landed myself in the hospital. I'm not gonna say exactly why, because I don't want that kind of stuff out there in the public, but that definitely did happen. And she was the first person to be there and come see me. And that, I valued that this much that I made it a mission for me to keep up with her ever since. But yeah, like there's nothing, at least for me, like I value these relationships a ton. I feel like people that show you that they care like that, for me, I always make sure to take extra time to check up on,
Yeah, I definitely need to be better with that, because I can value somebody from a distance for years at a time and be like, oh, I think about you and I wish you well often, but I never actually do that personally. Like I never reach out and say that with my words. I just like am wishing you well silently.
So here's my question then. Do you think about how people treat you and how you would want to be treated?
Oh yes, definitely. Now I do. Before I wasn't really paying attention to it, but when I went through that whole hitting the ground moment, a big healer was paying attention to how I felt around people and letting that shape my relationships and way of life anymore. So now I try to tap into that often. It's like, how do you feel right now? Who are you around? What are you doing? So I really do try to pay attention to that. And I'm also trying to get better at, I used to be really awkward with showing love and appreciation. Like my best friend, Molly, she would always poke fun at me because she would be like, Brook'l will not tell me that she loves me. And she's such a lover. She'd always be like trying to give me hugs, and I'm just not that type of person. So I'm like, ugh, get off of me. Yeah, I love you, whatever. But it's like, actually, it's not whatever. Like, you really helped me grow as a person, and I feel great around you. So I'm trying to get better at being honest with myself and speaking that to the people around me. Right now, it's really just her and my blood. But, yeah.
There's this quote I really like from a podcast I listen to that talks about the concept of friends, and the guy basically was saying that all of my friends are dead because they write books, and most of these book authors are long gone by the time their words reach you. So when I heard that, I'm like, damn, I didn't think of it like that. But now in hindsight, it starts to make sense as to why I think about life that deeply. You know, it's because I have a lot of dead friends I carry with me, you know, because I read a bunch of books when I was younger because I had fuck all to do at the time, but read books. So that was it was both my escape, but also my way of learning about the world around me. And then as I started to get more social in person with people, I started to realize that people are not as around as you think they are, you know, like for whatever circumstance. It could be that they end up moving, or that in some unfortunate cases they end up dead, which is, in my case, I know way too many of those. For whatever reason, they all share a car crash in common. I don't know what's up with that, but that gives me a specific phobia about cars that I didn't know I had.
That's right.
So whenever I see someone driving in that car and I'm in it and they pull their phones out, I just have a freaking panic attack, and I'm like, just put your phone away, please.
Yep.
I'm trying to end up like-minded friends.
Absolutely not. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting because I don't know, we all have our own different triggers and whatnot, but I never really allow myself to, like, I guess, voice them when it's necessary. I kind of just sit in the uncomfort for however long. Sometimes I just get so into my head that I don't want to, like, be a burden and bother them. Not that that's even bothersome. It's just you're communicating your boundaries, really. But I've definitely sat in silence with uncomfort like that before.
So speaking of uncomfortable, let's try and examine 3 things about yourself in your life that you would deem uncomfortable, and what you would perhaps try to do to address them. And I guess we'll start with your career life. You know, what's uncomfortable for you right now in your career in terms of what you're trying to be and what you're trying to achieve?
I've definitely grown since being there. I've been there for 3 years now, and it is I am so much different than when I first started. But I think when I first started, I would have said that I was insecure with myself, and that made me uncomfortable. People swooning over me made me uncomfortable because I didn't believe that myself. So it was like, I just viewed everybody as a bunch of liars. I couldn't trust anybody. It's like, oh, you like everybody, blah, blah. But now that I'm comfortable with myself, what makes me uncomfortable is how cryptic my manager is. I prefer like very blunt communication, and he is very, very, very cryptic. He wants me to take the reins for the girls, and I asked him what he meant by that. I said, I don't know what you mean. What is the goal here? What do you want to see from me so that I can do that? Because if you give me an assignment, I guarantee I'm going to do it. And he says, I just need to know that the girls can trust you. I said, they do trust me. He goes, I know that, but I just need to know that. I'm like, what does that mean? So really the only thing right now is the way he won't be blunt with me. So now I just like have to figure out how to prove to him that the girls do trust me and I can be the one to take the reins. He was supposed to retire like 3-4 years ago, but he just won't.
Wait, is it the same guy that like got an inheritance with like all the bars he owns, or is it someone else?
No, that is the owner. The manager doesn't own it, but he has managed it for 24 years, I think.
That's wild, you know, because something that being in the industry I'm in, that's so adjacent to technology and the arts, it's kind of funny how I see people come and go all the time, and it's actually the norm and encouraged to just job hop like that. Mm-hmm. I've been always curious to know like what that's like for people who stick around in these industries that long. Because 25 years, that's basically about as long as we've both been alive, yeah? With like
yeah, I know it.
Like, I cannot, I mean, no offense to that person, but I could not picture myself at like the same spot for 25 years. There's no way.
And I can picture it, actually. I like to bounce around. Like, I like to have just random jobs doing God knows what. I feel like I'm the friend that has like 19 chaotic stories every time we catch up, and it's like, what? How'd you land that job? It's just like, oh, the connect from so-and-so, from this job, from that other job. They're like, okay, whatever. But at the same time, I like some sense of routine. So I like I've been at my day job since I was 14. I've just worked my way up to the position I'm at now. I really enjoy doing that. So I told my manager within the first year of working there that was my goal. I was like, I want to take your spot. And I was pretty blunt about that. I was like, I'm trying to take his spot and your spot. He was like, okay, we'll see. But now that I'm still there, one, that's kind of impressive because people do not last long there. 2 of my coworkers, unfortunately, had gotten fired last week. But it's just, I don't know why, but people don't last long there. So my goal right now is to last as long as I can and take the reins, as he said.
So maybe that's just me going off of my own interpretation, but taking the reins, I think more so sounds like that he's challenging you to boss people around more, maybe.
Definitely.
Not in the being a dick kind of way, more like, hey, stay on top of things kind of way, because at the end of the day, you are part of a business. So for a business to stay sustainable, people have to be on top of their shit, you know? That's kind of, it kind of comes with the territory. So I'm supposing here that this is someone who is already used to micromanage things behind the scenes and perhaps wants to let go a little bit from that and trusting other people to do their jobs more, which is why they're challenging you out into the open like that?
Definitely. And I noticed that he's coming in less during my shifts to see how it plays out and stuff like that, to just like watch over the cameras, how things play out during the shift, which it sounds like this big business, but it's strip club. But at the same time, somebody does have to run it when he's not there. So when you said taking the reins means more of like bossing people around, that's exactly what he wants. He actually likes when the girls are mad at me because he thinks that means I'm doing my job. Not that they're mad at me, but they're just like, I don't want to go up right now, or like, I don't want to go up to that song. It's like, read the room. You're not going up to that song that you put on your list. Like, I'm sorry, but little things like that he loves. It's like, it does make me out to be the bitch sometimes, but at the same time, like he says 40 times a night, the show must go on.
That's so interesting. So I guess quick tangent, but like, does it take being a dick to be a good leader, or can you be a good leader and still be people's friends?
I think you can do both, and that's really what I'm trying to do right now. But at the same time, it feels like I'm playing both sides sometimes, because when I'm in the booth and it's 7 girls in line and they're like, but I wanted to go up next, or you told me that she was going at 12 o'clock. And it's like, I hear you all, but at the same time, I don't want to say his name. Manager is right here, and this is how he wants to play the game. So for right now, we're going to play this game, and we'll revisit this when he's done. I understand. But it's like, from my point of view, it's like, I don't want to run the game like he does, because I do hear the girls. Like, that would make more sense, really. But because he's been running the club for 23 years, he thinks that that is the one surefire way to do things. It's like, I am so like torn. I'm like, what do I do? Do I follow his instructions, or do I just run the show how I would like to see it? Because then if it blows up, he's going to grab the extra microphone and make fun of me over the mic, which he does.
Damn, that's talk about leadership, because he strikes me as the kind of guy who's very much jaded and seen it all, done it all kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have to even run as a whole strip club, because that industry, I only know from afar as someone who has friends who either became strippers or are currently strippers.
Mm-hmm.
And the one story that stood out to me the most was, I guess, this girl who came from a family that had the rags to riches story, where the mom essentially was doing the whole balancing parenthood and building a business on the side, and sometime around, I'd say, her late teenage years / early adult years, that business caught on, and so much so, in fact, that they were able to move out into like an expensive ass area, and they were now part of the rich club now. So for whatever reason, she saw it as her chance to run away from home, and stripping was like her statement to her parents to let them know that, hey, whatever life that you're trying to build for me, I don't want that. I'll do my own thing. And her doing her own thing was getting into stripping and meeting people there and getting into her womanhood, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
That was interesting for me to hear, because in the same kind of position, personally, I probably wouldn't have done that. I don't know. It feels like, again, this is just me really going off of what I know in terms of personal experience, but I know way too many people who unfortunately went from doing stripping to not really having their life go anywhere, because that's kind of the industry that, let's be honest here, that's kind of like the way the industry works. It's fairly predatory, especially towards younger girls, where they may not know what they're doing, and they'll be made promises about, hey, like he'll make this much money, just stick around, and then they stuck around for however many years, and then they just get ditched for another younger girl.
I was gonna say their time will unexpectedly be up for them at some point. I've seen that a couple of times too. But at the same time, I had a completely different view of stripping before I started working there than I do now. Like before, I was like, oh my God, I would never, yada yada, you know, the classic view of strippers. But now that I've befriended so many, it's like, wow, that is honestly really empowering. It's like everything is on your terms. You make your own schedule. You make your own rules when you go into VIP. You do what you want, and that is how you make your money. And everybody has their own kink and fetish and whatnot, so that you can play into whatever you want, really. So the way that you are channeling your individuality to benefit yourself, that is really empowering to see. But at the same time, the same man that I talked to about photography, he has just started managing another strip club close by. And he's like, all of these women, they make $100,000 plus a year and they have nothing to show for it. And I don't like that. I don't want them to be like, oh, she was the hot shit of this club in 2023. It's 2033 now. Who is she? And she has nothing to show for it. He doesn't want that. So he's trying to talk to like real estate agents and a couple, you know, back to networking, close friends that can help solidify like a future for them, which I think is really great. I also do think it's kind of like an on your own time thing. Like if you are making that much money, please invest it into yourself. And, you know, if you do want to do that forever, you definitely can. I've seen so many girls there for, there's this one girl, I think it's her 13th year, and she still does amazing. Like there's an audience for everything. But at the same time, I've seen girls, what she called it was being recycled, which was really sad because one of her regulars who was good for, I think he was giving her $2,000 a week, recycled her for another girl. It was like, wow, that would be a really hurtful, unexpected financial burden.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like it comes with the territory. Again, like this is not me really mimicking my own opinion about both the industry and the people in it, because in the place I'm in, I've been able to talk on people on both sides, and I know guys who, for whatever reason, you know, that's their way of communicating with women, and they enjoy it that way, and they don't want that to change. And you know what? More power to you. If this is how you see yourself supporting people with the money that you earned, you know, who am I to stop you? On the other hand, I also see a lot of girls who rely on that kind of relationship, that borderline sugar daddy type relationship, where it's not just a client, it's not just someone that comes in every other night, it's really someone that you're forming a relationship with.
Yeah.
And I guess if I were to even like take it a step further, it's basically an investor kind of relationship where you're showing someone why they should invest their money in you in terms of what they want to do with you in the long term and stuff like that. So I feel like that's something that can, when handled properly, it can lead places, especially for people that I know in my circle who have gotten into that sex work kind of industry, who have a lot of skills but don't really have a formal degree to show that skill exists. So yeah, like by association, they're able to meet some wild-ass people. And on top of that too, a funny quote I heard from a pretty popular OnlyFans model is that if you really want to know how the economy is doing, go to strip clubs, because if you go there and you see people hovering around, that's when you know the economy is doing well. And if they don't, that means we're about to be fucked for a few years. So do you see anything along those lines in your line of work?
I do, and it's actually terrifying because I totally agree. Like, I don't know if we're still in it. Apparently, we were just in a recession. Oh my God, we felt that. Like, before it was every time my manager came in at 10, I needed a bag of ones and I needed him to refill my till with ones, which in total is $2,000 just in ones. And anymore, it's maybe I have to ask for a new bag. And that's it. So that's scary. I mean, they're still making money, but it's like they're not throwing the way that they were. And I even last night had a guy come in like, man, this place used to be fun and this place used to be this and this. And it's like, the club didn't change. You're just not throwing money anymore. It's the same club. It's the same girls. You're just not throwing money. So I totally see that.
That's wild. Okay, well, that tangent aside, so earlier we were talking about, sitting with the uncomfortable, and the first aspect was, the career. I guess the next aspect that I wanted or was curious to touch upon was the education path. It struck me as someone who somehow knows a lot about a lot of things, and I'm curious to know both where you picked up all these information from, and also like what sort of uncomfortable things you're hoping to take on in your path to be more educated about both the world and the things you want to be involved in.
So my education is slim, actually. I was going to college until I found out my dad was paying fully out of pocket, and I did not want that because he is not a man of money. But if I need something, he will find a way to make it happen. And it just wasn't healthy because he's a roofer, he's getting old, he was working his ass off just for me to go to this community college, which was like a couple grand every semester. And that made me sick. So I dropped out, and I since haven't revisited. I should, now that I'm past 26 and I can apply for financial aid independently. I just haven't, but I'm glad you asked because that is something I want to get back into because I feel like there is so much for me to learn and I want to learn it. Like I don't want to do this forever, and if I do, I want it to be like a side thing. I want to do something with science, and I don't even know what, but I know that there's so much more that I want to put in my brain. I just am my father's child, and I will be up at night Googling pointless things just because I want to know.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Because for me, again, speaking from my perspective as someone who was not born in this country, I approached my path to education very differently. For one, I saw university and college for the scam that it really is, that it's mostly a ploy to get money from you and not really have anything to show for it by the time you graduate. But then I had this talk with that other guy he graduated from law school at 21 or whatever, which, good for you. And he talked about the fact that the advantage that he sees when having a college degree and access to people in college is that you're able to be in rooms that you typically wouldn't have access to, which is fine. I guess I can run with that. But I'm still going to disagree on the front that you still need to sell your soul to be able to get into these rooms, because I know hella people who on a whim can drop a whole college level degree money on something and basically move on their day and be fine. And well, if I had that kind of money to spend on college, I'd be spending it very selectively for the degree I'm pursuing. Because for me, if I'm gonna pursue a degree, call it flex or whatever, but I will make sure that degree has something to show for it, so that it's something engineering related or something tech related, something that lets people know that when I'm in the room, I'm a boss, that kind of shit.
That's my thing too. I don't really want to go to school and then have nothing to show for it because I start at a entry-level job. It's like, no, I want to go to school because I want to learn those things so that I can be able to do whatever I want in this business or in this field and be good at it.
Yeah, you just want to perform well. I feel for me, at the end of the day, a lot of the problems that I see with the college system is that it's full of people who get into it early that don't necessarily know what they wanted to do. And by the time they do graduate, they'll pivot to something else. And I know quite a lot of cases like that as we speak, actually, where they're currently trying to get into computer science and whatnot, which is the very thing I am interested in getting into. And they'll say that, you know what, maybe that's not the play for me. Maybe I'll get into the arts. And I'm like, that's cool if you want to do that, but just know that you're trading opportunities in exchange for going that route, you know, because contrary to popular belief, art doesn't make you money, not off the bat at least anyway.
Right. Unfortunately, I think that it should, but in reality, it doesn't.
Well, it doesn't because there's people are only teaching you half of the story here, you know, like you can make a lot of money from art. What they're not teaching you is that there's a method by which you're supposed to do it so that you can increase your value over time. And that's why these companies that thrive off of the work of artists are successful, is because they keep them ignorant of what they could have done to run their own business, or they discourage them from doing that altogether and make sure that they have to depend on them as a business so that other people manage the art for them and all they're stuck doing is creating, but they're never really involved in the process of what it takes to run an art business. You know?
All right. Yeah. Which also, I was going to say, there are plenty of people that I know with college degrees that are not doing anything to do with that. Which I know, like, if you have a manager or somebody in art to promote your work or something, you're still in that business. But there's even a couple of girls at the club that went to school for computer science. There's one that went for coding, and she has so much education, but is doing nothing with it right now. And I don't know why. I also feel like there's some people that have the college education and they landed the job, but then they lack the common sense of life. So I don't know. I kind of find it interesting, my battle back and forth between, do I go back to college? Do I not? Do I just try to like work my way up from this small job and try to make it something? Because it's hard for me to trust an education anymore because of that.
Well, I mean, talk about a fucking sentence. You know, it's hard for you to trust in education. I feel like most young adults in this current day and age, they feel robbed of opportunities, and they really feel back in terms of what they're able to access, in terms of what they're willing to exchange, you know, for that dream or that success that they were promised. As you're told, go to college, get a degree, get a job, and when you look at practically what's going on, you see that the people that are successful don't really go that route. And
no.
If they do go that route, chances are they have wealthier parents to help them out along the way, which again, good for them. You know, like, I'm not hating for having that kind of privilege, but it's just that for me, there's something that's like not clicking here. How is it that on one hand you're being told one thing, but on the other hand you look at the facts of life and you see how people make it, something is not going how it should here. So I started to really think about these things from that perspective of, okay, let's assume that I was an 18-something-year-old that is fresh into the world, trying to make it and trying to be stable. What would I be doing as to encounter as less obstacles as possible? So that was kind of like my path with like seeking discomfort, just really throwing myself at things and seeing what works and what doesn't, and really sticking it all the way through, even though by the end of it, I felt like that time was not put to great use. I feel like my time in the creative industry definitely has taught me a lot of like unspoken rules about business and the world and what you can do with what I like to call hard skills and soft skills. So an example of soft skills would be networking, right? That's not something that people don't stop to think about it, but it is a soft skill in the sense that you sort of need to figure out really quickly who you should be talking to, because these networking events that I've gone to in the past, it's very obvious to me that people just show up and never really know who's gonna be there. I always make it a point to know who's in the room or know why they're relevant, if that even matters in the context, and come and go from there. And that's how I landed this whole thing with this private seminar I'm currently involved in, where the manager of Tupac is constantly giving advice on her time in the industry and how she feels about it. And she's giving a lot of like life advice, not so much business advice, that in any other context I would never have access to, because I've gone through the trouble of using my soft skills as a networker to meet people in places that I necessarily would not really be invited to, and that would be college, right? Because I never really went, but I know a lot of people that do, so I kept in touch with them. And yeah, one day I got a message saying, hey, like, I'm organizing this event about the music industry and the business side of it. I would love for you to show support. And I'm like, cool, I'll just show up and see what happens. And lo and behold, like, she was there. And in hindsight, she said that she was actually not expecting to be there. So she almost said no, but she said yes, because part of her mission as like an educator and someone who looks to share that wisdom with people is to do that outreach with college students that may not know better about the industry that she's currently in, and really show them why, they're trying to break into it if that's what they want. So that's when that system for me really became obvious of like, I really need to hone in more on these soft skills, these skills that people don't tell you about, that you should prioritize and learn from and make use of. And then there are the hard skills where it's what I like to call knowledge-based skills, like the stuff that you use to flex so that people know you're a big deal. So it could be doing sales, for example, or being a good negotiator, or being someone who is technical in whatever area, like doing sound systems for, performance events and whatnot, or being someone who's really good at running a room, like managing and stuff like that. I find that if I were to put a ratio to it, people to me seem to take people more seriously that naturally tap into their soft skills, because they have a way to lead you without necessarily making you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like almost a way of manipulation, but like with no
that's exactly what it is. Like, I'm just gonna be blunt here and say, these people are good at manipulating people to make them feel as if they're getting something when really they're the ones getting it. It's so strange.
I totally agree. But also, back to the Tupac manager thing, she's teaching you soft skills that you'll be able to use everywhere. And I feel like this is one of my arguments I have with myself when I am trying to decide whether or not I want to go back, is like, yes, going back to college will teach me, like, maybe what I need to know for that degree. But at the same time, I feel like it's missing a lot, like what she is teaching you. Like, I feel like they're not going to teach me how to address problems with the people I'll work with, or the networking way of life that most degrees involve. And I feel like that should be way more present in education. Like, I wish high school was different even. Like, I wish they taught me about taxes and like things that you actually use in life rather than who was the 39th president. It's like, am I going to need that? Or are you just setting me up for, education I don't really maybe need for day-to-day life?
You're being set up so that effectively you're kept as a worker, because that's something I've said a lot to people in the past, and some of them look at me like I'm crazy, but I will tell them that, hey, there's no such thing as a war between the blacks versus the whites or the men versus the women. The real war going on is the 1% versus the 99%. Mm-hmm. And these people, the 1%ers, that is, they'll do anything they can to keep you at that status because they profit from you. That's how it works. Now they're only able to make that much money because you, the 99% person, are willing to spend it on shit that half the time you don't really need. It's just shit that you're told you should be getting or owning because that's the cool thing to do, or that's like the thing that other people did, therefore you should do it too, kind of thing.
Yep, I totally agree. And I feel like a lot of life and a lot of people's daily struggles is like trying to figure it out, being that 1%. And it's like, I don't know how to be that 1%, really. I wasn't set up with that blessing of well-off parents, or like, I didn't really have much guidance. Like in high school, if somebody were to ask my dad raised me. If somebody were to ask him, where's Brook'l? He just went, I don't know. He wasn't concerned, which I obviously loved that at the time. But I do wish that I had a little bit more guidance to be like, hey, go this way, rather than being worried about what everybody else thinks about you. Because in my younger years, I gave a fuck about what everybody else thought about me. And now that I'm not, I feel like I'm so far behind with trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do, not what everybody else wants me to do.
Well, the good news is that you're only 27, and I know that the joking was that someone told you that, oh wow, they didn't think you were that old. But
right.
It is, to be honest, I feel like that 27 is kind of like a good middle point to be at, where you're far enough along in life so that you know what's up, but not so far where you're like, damn, where did all that time go?
Right. And nothing's set in stone right now. Like I could restart life right now and I would still be okay. Like I know that, but same time there is that little voice in me that's like, do I have it figured out? I have no idea.
Okay, so here's the last discomfort thing I want to ask you about in terms of what you deal with from a person perspective, because clearly when you heard that comment about your age, it's sort of struck a nerve, right? I'm curious to know like where that comes from. Is it like a woman thing, or is it something else? And how do you get more comfortable with aging gracefully,
Yeah, I think it is more of a woman thing, especially in the club, because, it does feel like you have an expiration date. Like I often am stressed about still being there, and I've only been there 3 years. But like with romantic partners, that's often their first dig is, oh yeah, work at the strip club for another 2 years and tell me how it is. I'm like, I can though. And I don't think that that's bad. Maybe it is, but not in my opinion. So I think the age thing is really only uncomfortable for me in the club. Like I still feel young outside of that, but when I walk in there, I feel like mom, like good boss, she's here. Okay. Where all the other girls are like this vulnerable, innocent, that's what most men like in the club, is when they're vulnerable and have no idea what they're doing. They like that because it's easier to approach and easier to, hate to say it, but manipulate the conversation and the night.
Damn. Cool. A lot of what I think about in terms of what needs to be done for my future traces to this concept known as the prime number maze, and chances are you don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna catch you up real quick. So the prime number maze as a concept is tied to science and research and how you can train rats to figure out how to solve a maze by teaching them how to turn. You can teach them to either take a turn at every even number or every odd number, right? But the problem arises where you try to apply that same principle to a prime number, because prime numbers, there's a pattern there, but it's not so obvious that you can teach a rat how to interpret it, right?
Right.
And even for myself, to be honest, the concept behind prime numbers is something that I haven't quite figured out just yet. Because one, I was terrible at math. I actually had to take my math exam 4 times for me to be able to pass high school successfully.
Oh, so, we are on the exact same page with math.
Yeah, but it's so funny because like I don't struggle with numbers as a concept. More so the way it's taught to me. That's what really the disconnect for me comes from.
Yeah.
Because if anything, I fucking love numbers. I love data, actually. I'm more of a data
I
person.
do.
Like, I like to know who's where, what's doing what, and how things work. But once you get into the numbers territory, I'm like, X plus Y times Y.
Well, yes. My problem with math is like when there's no point to it, it's like, why am I trying to figure this out? Then my brain just shuts off. But if it's like involved with science or like data, like you said, then my brain will move and like try and figure it out correctly.
Yeah. So the prime number maze concept essentially talks about this idea that you can't teach a rat to turn at every prime number turns. Therefore, that's something that's too abstract for them to understand. And my way of interpreting it deals in 2 aspects. Aspect number 1 being that, okay, I know for sure that there are things that are way beyond me that I can't tackle. Therefore, I won't bother wasting my time trying to tackle them, right? It's like, if it's too difficult for me to get my head around just now, it's okay. I just settle on it for maybe a few months, if not a few years, and then when it clicks, it clicks. Or I'll be led by what I like to call my prime number alternate self, the one that somehow seems to have it all figured out and that know what turns to take. And I live in that headspace of, okay, if I was this person that has it all figured out, what would they do and how would they do it,
Yeah, I like that.
That's the philosophy I kind of approach basically everything I do, from meeting people to doing career moves to even building a business, because technically I'm in the midst of doing one. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to turn into in the future, but my peers, for comparison, that do the same thing I'm doing, not just podcasting, but more so writing, because I consider myself a writer first and a podcaster second. And the good example of what that looks like as a business model would be Joe Rogan, who has featured lots of crazy ass famous people on his podcast. So good for him. I'm not trying to go that route, but I'm also trying to leverage the writing that I make and the insights I get from these podcasts and package that into something that hopefully resonates with people, and perhaps publish these things into a whole book, because I already have well over 29 hours worth of stuff to lighting there. Yeah. Like I've been on my grind, man. So that with that I'm having with you right now, I did on tops was gonna make it well over 30. So yeah, that's enough material there for me to turn into a book if I wanted to. And my peers that I'm aware of have built a business around that, where the platform I publish my writing on, some of these people get paid tens of thousands of dollars a month just for what they write. And I'm like, you know what? That's my prime number base. That's where I'm trying to be in terms of taking the stuff I write and monetizing it in such a way where people come to me for insights. That's where I want to be. So
Okay.
the next part of that job comes in by seeking out the people that know shit I don't know, or even don't just take people at face value and assume that they may not know something, and still let the conversation guide you and learn something still that way, you know?
Okay. Yeah. No, I like that. It reminds me of like when I am struggling with what to do, just with my life in general, I'll ask myself, like, what do you want to do? And then I'll dress the part and act like I already have that. Like that's already the life that I'm living. And then I find that it like introduces the way to that life. Just because I'm just like training my mindset to already be there. It's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I mean, not only it's a mindset thing, but I really do believe that it's also a confidence thing. And a quote I read on Reddit is something that really sat with me for a minute, because the initial question was posed about, hey, if you were to talk to teenagers today and tell them harsh truths about life, like what truths would you tell them? And one of them said, you have no idea how much further confidence takes you than actual hard skills. And they proceeded to give examples, to illustrate that, like, I personally know in my circle of people, there are guys that are not nearly as talented as you might think, that somehow have scored opportunities to get tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in investment for things that they're working on, just by sheer confidence of just walking into a room and say, hey, I'm owed this and I'm not gonna leave the room until I get that. And I'm like, damn, that's interesting, like there's like that funny meme I see on Twitter every so often that says, God, give me the confidence of pasty white guy who just walks into a room and demands $1 million just because. Like, yeah, like that's the kind of shit that I think is worth tapping into, because ultimately I really do feel that the society that we live in, unfortunately, leaves us to fend for ourselves, especially if we come from that background where we don't have much to show for what we have, especially from like a family tie kind of standpoint. Yeah. I have a lot of family, but number one, I'm not in touch with basically none of them. And number two, even if I was, there's nothing realistically I could do that I could use to my advantage to get ahead in life. So the next thing I'm left with is to just take these insights I've gotten from all these hours and hours I've done doing researching, doing my own work, and just personal life lessons in general, and just go from there, and not hopefully not be too harsh on myself along the way, because I can be very critical, unfortunately.
Yeah, and once you stop being critical of yourself is when that confidence comes in, which is something I definitely had to teach myself when I started working at the club. Like I said, I was very insecure, and once I decided to flip that switch and just act confident, then people thought I was confident, and then I actually became confident, because people treat you a different way when you're confident. They buy into it. People don't know who you are, so if you just tell them, like, this is what's up, this is how I view myself, so it must be how it is. It's kind of why I live a delusional life. Like, I literally have to tell myself like these weird manifestations every morning, night, walking my dog. I'll just be like repeating these manifestations, but it's to gain that confidence to make it a reality in any aspect.
So another layer that I see a lot of that I honestly had no idea about until recently was that there's a lot of people that end up marrying into wealth as well. Like, what's your take on that? Because I feel like that's something I never really get to talk about with people, especially women in general.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's number one, what do you think about that? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And whether it's, you for or against, like what does that serve in terms of like goals, like.
I'm actually glad you asked that, because that is one of my biggest fears. I'm always scared that I will fall in love with somebody with a lot of money, because I don't ever want to rely on anything that is not my own. And I don't really have a traditional like relationship to look up to. But I do know that I watched my mom do that when I was very young. My dad was the breadwinner, and she was reliant on it. And then when she didn't want to be with him anymore, it was, well, do you want to put up with this relationship that you're no longer happy with? Or do you just want to, venture out, fend for yourself, and figure out your own money? Because that was quite the switch for her. And I hate that I had to see that, because that is why I'm so like hyper independent now. But I'm also glad that I'm hyper independent, because I don't really want to marry into wealth. I have a friend who did, and I am so happy for her, because it seems to be a really, really happy relationship. But I also do have that voice in my mind that worries, like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Where is she going to go next? I don't know. It's a fear that I definitely have.
If you're going to, I guess, if you ever end up going that route, then follow the blueprint that the former wife of Jeff Bezos did, where apparently when they split off, she was owed half of the billions of dollars that he was worth at the time, which is crazy to think about.
Wow.
Just by being married to the guy who built Amazon, like you owed like a couple $1 billion just because.
Right.
That's a concept that I struggled to wrap my head around. And I started to get curious, and I looked into the legality of what being married even means, because from what I understand, apparently being married, it's, to put it bluntly, it's a tax evasion scheme.
Yeah, I agree.
Because apparently you pay way less in taxes when like you like declared as like one household and stuff like that. So that's something I was like, okay, so how far does that rabbit hole go? So like how many more ways can people cut corners by not paying money that they legally quote unquote should, and that kind of set me on that path of really look at the legal system, not like as a system, but as a game to be gimmicked,
Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, like single income households should be paying less, right, than the multiple, assuming that they both have jobs, I don't know, than the multiple income household paying less just because they're married. It's crazy to me. But I also agree, because I don't really know if I understand marriage the way that I should. I've always shied away from it. I even get uncomfortable at weddings. I don't know. Just doesn't sit the same as it does for everyone else for me.
Well, if that puts any of your worries at ease, just know that in the time that we live in right now, with all the tools we have accessible, we can learn about that and catch up in ways that honestly, it's kind of crazy. For example, there's this website called Pacer, and Pacer essentially is an acronym that stands for just public record documents that set a legal precedent for people in America. And someone in the past has done the due diligence, like bless be this hero. He typically would have to pay money to access his records, right? So what he's done is that he's made his records public and free to use and view, so that anyone from any background could find out a specific niche legal case that applies to them. It could be immigration, it could be wedding shit, it could be real estate shit. Chances are, if there's something in there's something that could apply to you. So you could just like look it up in that sort of aspect. Or since everything is so different in this country from like a state to state level, there are ways for you to use these AI tools that are out right now to teach you about the legal system from the ground up, you know, from the county level to the city level to then, you know, state level and then federal level and all that shit. For me, that was my way in to be able to comprehend like what that meant.
Okay. I wrote down pacer. What was the last one you just mentioned?
So earlier I was looking your name up on that Bing tool I told you about. It's the same one. Just so Bing is available on Microsoft Edge. It's like the browser that you're stuck with. Bing is not available anywhere else. So once you get on there, you search for Bing, and it's going to show you like a little text chat bot thing on the hand right corner, and you can just ask it whatever. Like, what are the legal laws about marriage in the state of Florida, for example, and see what comes up, and organically come through that information and just address what's relevant to you and what's not relevant. Just ditch it, you know, and keep it moving.
Interesting. Okay, I wrote that down too.
Yeah. I learned a lot about, honestly, just stuff about running a business in general that I typically would need to either know someone who already runs a business or go to school for that. I've learned the core of it, you know, just off of the internet. But with these tools that are currently available, it's kind of crazy how much you can learn about the business of things. You could even take it a step further and say, hey, I want to learn about, I don't know, how to get into owning a strip club, you know? I could, in theory, do that. I could literally reverse engineer, you know, what's required legally, like what can be done to cut corners, how to hire people, what license do I need, and all that type of shit. Because in the traditional Googling system, you have to find that stuff on your own, and now you have a machine that goes and find that stuff for you, which is wild to think about, that this is the era we live in currently. So I'm not sure what that will do for the education of the general population, because it's kind of already pretty bad as is, where people just take whatever they see on social media at face value and don't do any further research. So having the ability to have something do that research for you, I'm not exactly sure what that will do, but I'm hopeful though that younger generations have a better grasp of that technology than even we do, because you yourself struck me as someone who's apparently very active on TikTok. You kept during the Whistle Pig podcast, you kept dropping a bunch of like TikTok references in there, and I was like, oh, you are chronically online, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes, but not like personally. Like, I don't post myself, which I feel like I'm so like involved with it that I should monetize it, really, the same way everyone else does, but I just don't. I don't know.
You don't know where to start, or you don't know what you want to do with it?
I think I do know what I would do with it too. Like, I would do Get Ready With Me to bartend or DJ at the strip club. Like, there's one strip club DJ now, but I'll be honest, his stuff isn't that funny to me. Like, it's some of it's a little cringy or whatever, and I think are controversial. So I feel like having another perspective of that same view would be nice on that platform. So I do think that I know what I would do with it. I just haven't actually crossed that line because I'm scared of trying it and it never taking off.
Well, I will tell you, if I've learned a key lesson, just paying attention to people in my industry and outside of it, is that people fail a ton of times until they do hit on the one thing that leads to success, you know?
Yeah.
And not only they fail a ton of times, but they learn to fail quickly. And what that means is you learn to figure out when to let go of things so that you're not wasting your time, and move on to the next thing and take whatever you've learned from that past attempt into the new one and try to make the most of it. So that's where for me the writing clicked and took off, because believe it or not, I have people paying me about $150 a pop on a yearly basis so that they see more of my writing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like the first time it clicked through was when, I think about 2 weeks into me starting to publish my writing independently. Someone subscribed and I got the email from that saying, hey, so and so to subscribe to you and pays you that much. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. So I reached out and I asked, hey, like, I just started this thing and you just subscribed to me. Why did you do that? And come to find out, they told me that you provided insights that not only I don't get anywhere else, but also you're so thorough in what you talk about and how you talk about it, that for me it's just a good source for me to find intro level information about things that perhaps I would not find otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So that's when it clicked for me that, okay, something can be made out of this so that it can lead to other opportunities. So I'm not as active on the social media side, but I've very much been on this whole, let me at the very least publish a new piece of writing once a week and kind of go with that from there. And with the podcasting thing, it's actually pretty dope that I can essentially take bite sounds from whatever combos I end up having and reposting that elsewhere on TikTok. And I've been getting some interesting impressions from these conversations from people, because TikTok is a platform, as you all already know, is like very heavy on the controversial things. So to see people's take on what I talk about and the guests that I feature, it's been interesting and insightful to see the reaction out of that. So yeah, like for me, it's just building a platform is where my head is at. I couldn't care less about the clout. I feel like clout is a byproduct of having a platform anyway. So I started to really take seriously the kind of things I talk about and make it clear that this is what I want to talk about, and just make sure to really facilitate that access to other people that maybe want to get into the same thing. So in your case, honestly, given that not only you have access to what I presume to be a lot of very smart people around you, yeah, like start to do something similar. Just have your account up and share little behind the scenes stuff from like the club scene or stripper scene and whatnot, and so tell people, hey, if you ever want to do this as a job, here's how you should do it. And trust me, people, what I've noticed a ton about social media in general is that people are more likely to take some information as reliable if it comes from someone, as opposed to some, I don't know, online post somewhere that you just read about, I don't know why that is, but
I look that up before new jobs. I'll look up like YouTube videos, like tips for new bartenders. I definitely did that when I was starting to bartend, and I did view it as more reliable. And I'm also glad you brought up failure, because I've actually been like inviting that into my life lately. So I really should just like bite the bullet and do it, because failure is inevitable in some sense of it along the way. But I feel like this is cheesy, but that's when you learn the most. And when I was hitting rock bottom, like I said before, I grew so much after that. It was like, okay, that showed me what I don't want to do, how to come up from that, and what not to do again.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say in terms of like a soft skill of yours that you do have, speaking stuff is something you should be leveraging more. I feel like you being able to not only talk so well about your ideas and ideas that you're interested in, you could turn that into something that adds up as a platform for yourself. And TikTok is honestly the one place I can think of that serves as a no barrier of entry for just about anyone who's good in that kind of capacity. So don't necessarily do it on the account that you lurk on, just have like an actual dedicated account where it's literally for that purpose. Just you post stuff out there into the open about, you know, your life, your interests, and what you're learning about and stuff like that, and people will come.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Making a new one.
And little things I've learned along the way too, so you don't run into the same problems I had to deal with early on. Definitely have the same username everywhere. It's just, people are lazy. They won't look you up if you have like a different name for each platforms.
Right.
So definitely spend some time to think about what name you want to go by and how unique that name is, because you want to be unique, but not so unique that like now people struggle to even remember you, right? Like,
right.
It's like a big problem I've noticed a ton in the industry I'm in. And in terms of, I guess, social media platforms in general, it seems to be a bit of a split, because social media has, as a landscape, has changed a ton since the last several, I'd say, few months or so, especially for Twitter specifically, where Twitter got just bought out by Elon Musk, and now people don't really know what the platform is going to become anymore. So I personally started to take Twitter a little less seriously as a result. Instead, I really started to get serious about the YouTube stuff and the writing stuff, and I kind of made it my foundation for everything else. Because a lot of my peers that I talk to on a regular basis, they're YouTubers themselves, and these are people that make content, right? Like there's this guy, for example, I did a consultation with, and he was asking me about how to make better use of his content, how to market it, and all that stuff. And I told the guy that, look, man, you just did a video about J. Cole that already has 250,000 views. And for context, that amount of views on YouTube, that gets you just about $2,000 more or less, right?
Wow.
So, yeah. So I told him, yo, how about you take whatever segments in that video that you think are doing really well, or better yet, look at your analytics and see, because you can see that, you know, like YouTube will show you, here are the parts that people are watching the most. So cut these out and then repost that elsewhere, you know, your Instagram, your TikTok, because the way I think about it, TikTok and Instagram are like your free billboards. And to even build upon that analogy, what I've seen my stripper friends do, the way they use social media, it's very interesting, because they both have a private account and a public account. And on the public account, what they'll do is that they'll post like a clips of themselves like dressing up to go to the scene or stage, I guess. Mm-hmm. Or they'll post like themselves dancing to a trendy popular song. And I used to think that they were just doing it for vanity metrics, right? It's just like, cool, more likes. But no, turns out what they're effectively doing is that they're attracting potential new customers that would visit them at that club, because in their story, chances are if you click on it, they'll say, hey, come see me at so-and-so location at that PM. So I'm like, like y'all are hustlers, bro. I need to learn from you.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of that involved.
Which is wild for me too, because like honestly, as someone, again, like sex work is not my world, and there was a time where I used to be very anti-porn, not because I was like a prude or whatever. It's just that, again, my immigrant mentality, we don't really have that, you know. We don't have a porn culture, you know, because where I'm from is a very poor country, so we don't have as readily an access to the internet. So what that meant was that it was not as common for younger kids to access porn at a young age. So when I came here and I saw a bunch of high school / middle schoolers just casually browsing porn, it occurred to me that, whoa, that's not good. I mean, right. It's not the kind of image of sex I would want a kid to have personally. But as I grew older, it occurred to me that there's so much more going on behind the scenes in the industry of sex work in general that I could potentially learn from, which is why in my time as a photographer, some of the people I've shot with happen to be folks established on OnlyFans, or folks that already had a following in their own platforms, or that did stripping for a long time. Just by conversation, it would occur to me that, hey, I could apply some of what they've learned into my own process and kind of go from there.
Oh, definitely. As far as the hustling part, there's one platform I'm pretty active on is Snapchat. I feel like I'm so comfortable with that one because it goes away quickly. It's like there's no like profile of everything that I've posted. So yesterday I was working there and I posted, ugh, I need a hug from a big strong man. And I had 3 customers come in just to give me a hug, but I didn't really need a hug. It was just a slow night and I needed the door numbers to go up. So I got 3 more heads to come in just from that one post, which doesn't really seem like a lot. It kind of is for a Wednesday, but at the same time, it was better than 0. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So Snapchat, I'm curious about, because I used to use Snapchat mostly for the geographic feature, the one where you can tap on a location and you can see what people are posting in that area. What else do you use it for? Because it's a fairly closed platform, right? If you're not in it, you can't see what's going on there.
No, but that's why I use it so much, is because I don't want everybody to see where I'm at or what I'm doing, because I am pretty active on it. I'll post like stepping out alone, come back, catch me if you can, all caps can, because one of the bars that I frequent out here is called Tin Can. So it was just like a little Easter egg of I'm at Tin Can, and then people will find me there. I don't even know what, but those are just some examples of what I use it for. Or I'll post like what bar I'm working at. I'll do that on Instagram sometimes too, and then tag the club so that they can repost it for visibility. But at the same time, it's kind of like I built my own following of regulars, and that's who I want to come see me. So
interesting. Yeah. That's I see a similar parallel for me as someone who attends a lot of music events, and I would post something or repost something, and through that, because of the kinds of people I'm associated with, someone that a pretty big deal may or may not end up showing up there because they've seen it because of me. So that's interesting that you put it that way. So maybe I'll get back into Snapchat, because I do have an account, but it's not tied to anything else I'm doing as far as branding goes.
Yeah,
that was kind of like my thing. When I started to really take this whole venture seriously, I was heavy on the whole, I only want people to only know me as like one name online and not several others. Because for me, it's more of a case of I don't want to confuse people and have to explain for the 1,000th time that I'm that same person or that same account. And I use so many of them too, and it's just kind of part of the problem with this industry I'm in, where it's like someone will tell you so-and-so is a big deal, and you're like, cool, a big deal where? And they'll tell you, oh, on TikTok, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have a TikTok account, so I can't go there. So it's interesting that, like, as a result of that, I've had to essentially learn, like to move how people move and go where people go. And TikTok specifically is really weird because I've seen club promoters and DJs even leverage the platform in very unusual ways. So for example, there was this like one time I saw this viral ass video with like almost 2 million likes, and it was a rave cave, right? And the guy that was hosting the event was not the one that posted it. Actually, it was the someone that went there to see the event posted it themselves, and everyone was going crazy in the comments saying, yo, like, that's such a dope spot. Why is it at? Why is it at? And then a DJ promoter came in the comments saying, hey, I'm the one that put the event together. Follow me on my account. And he's gone from and he's gone from like fucking like 1,000 something followers to almost like 200,000, which is crazy.
Yes. Okay, so for my day job, I do their marketing too. So I do their social media. And for Instagram, it's a very seasonal business. So during the peak times, I'll randomly just search it up and see who posted there or the hashtag there or whatever. And then I'll post as the company. And then that will gain a lot of followers just from their followers and stuff like that. So it's the same thing, kind of like just lurking your own whereabouts through other people, really.
There's a term for that. It's called digital nomad. You're just jumping from place to place digitally.
Yep.
And seemingly you learn a lot. And some of these aspects we touched upon, dealt with the human side and obviously the tech side. But I'm actually curious, I guess, as a way to wind things down, to talk about like that impact with other people. Because for me, as I've grown older, I started to realize that not everyone is as online as I am, right? So there's a level of disconnect there in terms of me saying something that may or may not be a reference and they don't get it. And a good example of that, I remember I recently had to explain to someone what Whiz was.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So when that happened, I'm like, damn, I guess if I am to maintain real relationships, or at least healthy ones, I need to learn how to disconnect a little bit and be human and just talk to normal people that are not as online. So one of the things I've been getting more aggressive about has been to probe people who meet me to only hit me up on my actual number and not just on social media, because I feel that social media has a certain degree of accessibility that people take for granted. That, oh, like, I saw you post a story like 1 hour ago, that means that you're fine. And I'm like, well, actually, just because I'm active online, that doesn't mean I'm fine. If anything, I could be having a breakdown. So yeah, just talk to me on my actual phone.
Oh, I totally agree.
So do you take that into consideration with your relationship with people? And I don't mean specifically romantic, although it could be that, but it seems to me that you're in that weird in-between zone where you're making friends, but you're also learning to make friends with yourself, but you're also trying to open yourself up again to people as far as romantic opportunities go. So yeah, like, how does social media play into all of that with these relationships? Did you rug?
What's that?
Did I rug or did you rug?
I think I did.
Okay. What part did I cut out at some point? I mean,
No, that's okay. I was saying that's why I use Snapchat, really, because I can pick and choose who to give that to. I kind of like use it as my number. And if you're hitting me up on Instagram, it's like you probably found me through the club page, and then you just want to be involved with me because I'm the bartender and you want to get close to me for a free shot or something like that. But if I give you my Snapchat, then it's like I wanted you to have that. You didn't just find that. So it's kind of like the number thing.
That's interesting. So you would say that Snapchat is a platform for, I guess you could say, younger people then? Because I've been seeing some interesting takes recently of like, if you're 25 and you ask me for Snapchat, that's a red flag.
Yeah. Oh, I totally see that. A lot of people will be like, oh, I'm not giving you, or I don't want your Snapchat. Okay, that's fine. But that's all I'm offering right now, because maybe this is selfish, I don't view you as worthy on any other platform for our relationship. Like I really, I don't use Instagram for work often. I just like to view like art and my friends pretty much. So if I offering my Snapchat and they do view it as a red flag, which does happen often. They don't really care because that's not what I'm using it for. I think they think that because it's like a lot of people will just use it to try and like hook up, stuff like that, which definitely happens, but that's not what I'm using it for.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, it's definitely my big switch happened when I started to really let people know that, at the end of the day, the number is really the way to go. If you have my number, what that means is you have a level of access to me that I don't just give around to anybody. Anyone can find my stuff and follow me anywhere. That's cool, but there's a certain level of, dare I say, intimacy required for me to be that comfortable to just give people my number, especially at my stage right now where I'm starting to be in touch with people that are quote unquote a big deal. I try not to think about it this way, but for the sake of my mental health, I kind of have to, because imagine if I went around saying to everyone that, hey, I know the manager of Tupac. What do you think is going to happen? People, yeah, people are going to hit me up saying, hey, who is this person? Like, how do I talk to them? And I'm like, dude, like, even if I did give you the connect, like, it's not going to get you what you think it will. Wow. That's not how this whole thing works. And I was having this conversation with this young lady, which in your case, I think this one might stick out to you. They're 23, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me about how they approach relationships and how the whole idea behind how you do things in the city I'm at, which is LA. It's just people are expected to be fake. That's kind of the game. And I disagree with that heavily. I was like, I don't know if I'm wrong with that, because if that's the case, then why do you even bother meeting up with me? Like if all interactions are fake, like you say, then why are you even talking to me right now? And that kind of off the wall question caught them off guard, so they had to think their answer for a second, but then they eventually said that, well, it struck me as someone who's level-headed and who's really smart and that knows their shit, so that's why I kept in touch with you. And I'm like, that's cool. So I'm hoping that culture is something that is maintained not just around me, but around the other people I know. I get that sometimes you have to play the game, but I'm not a big fan of just playing the game just for the sake of it, and just see people as step ladders to get to other things.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say is like, sometimes I feel like, especially in LA, people do get used to just playing the game every day, but you can definitely tell when people are deeper than just surface level transactional conversations.
So you're 27 now. You will turn 37 in 10 years and 47 in 20 years, which is not that long, all things considered. So where do you see yourself at these eras of your life?
Ooh, in 10 years, I see myself like probably still in Michigan, but in 20 years, I want to be outside of Michigan, or if I'm not outside of Michigan, I want to be on the water, doing something with plants and living a softer life.
Interesting. Why plants specifically? Do you have like a connection to that or what?
Right now I think I counted the other week, I have 43 or 45 plants in my 400 square foot apartment. So I have a lot. They're everywhere. And then my patio is full of them. I had a friend, she left her sweatshirt in my car, and I was like, I'm just going to drop it from my balcony. Like, my dog's freaking out, whatever. Oh, he's freaking out right now. Anyways, I was like, I'm just going to drop it. And she said, I'm assuming it's the one with the jungle on it. I said, yes, that's me. So I've just always loved plants. I like, watching them and like seeing when they need something rather than like, oh, well, this one needs it every 3 days. I like just listening to it and like, I don't know, tuning into it. It's kind of like a nature thing I've always been into.
So I take it that you cook as well then, since you're heavy into plants and stuff.
I do. I have some rosemary and basil and cilantro on my balcony. I love to cook whenever I allow myself the time.
That's what's up. Yeah, cooking is a lost art. It's actually both cooking and hunting. I feel like if anyone knows how to do the two, then it doesn't really matter where you're at. You should be fine, reasonably speaking.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. I tried hunting with my dad when I was younger, but every time I went, I had nightmares that I was stabbing my dog to death in the woods because I kept calling the deer forest puppies. That was the worst mistake that I could have done. I could not stop those nightmares. So I haven't revisited that, but I could definitely grow a mean garden and live sustainably like that. I would love to do that. Actually, when I was in college, that was my main project I did, was on earth ships, just living sustainably, like using the rainwater for not only your garden, but cooking and showering and filtering it for drinking and stuff like that. So I love a sustainable way of living.
Yeah, see, part of sustainable living for me deals with how I interact with the community that I'm currently involved in. And a lot of what I do outside of the creative industry work is tapping in with the folks that are involved in doing outreach for the low-income people. So a lot of what we've done there, it's this spot called All Power Books, by the way. It's like pretty neat. It's basically a book store / community space where people come in to get free food and free clubs or free access to the wall, just basically free everything, as long as we have it in stock. We even have a free fridge there where people can just go grab food and just eat it on the spot.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So like, it's pretty cool that like I've been able to get involved on that side of the fence where it's not as heavy on the whole, I guess you could say. I feel like a lot of what I ran into as a problem in the creative industry is that people only care about you if you have value in some way, right? Whether it's, clout or association and whatnot. But in that other side of the things, that circle of people, they mostly care about two things. Are you anti-government, and are you pro, people that are not in the best situation? If the answer to the two is yes, then congratulations. You're into the club. And for me, it's like fairly obvious, like I see, as I explained to you before, like it's fairly obvious to me that it is a case of war of the 1% versus the 99%. So it made sense for me to align myself with these people and just help them out where I could, especially since a lot of what they do relies on having an online platform that sometimes may or may not be silenced because of the whole anti-government stance. Because call me crazy, but I feel like people should get to voice out into the open why they're mad about their government failing them, especially when prices are on the rise and people can barely afford anything anymore.
Yes, well, I feel like that should be part of free speech.
Yeah, well, free speech is only free if you have the money to afford it. That's kind of like the quote I like to say.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
It's kind of like there was this thing I found out about Jeff Bezos, and apparently he owes like tens of thousands of like dollars in like parking tickets. And someone in the comments said, well, I guess when you're that wealthy, the law is merely a suggestion, huh?
Yes.
And I'm like, damn, I didn't think about it this way, but it kind of fits with the mentality that I have of like, yo, it's crazy that some of these people are so far removed from our day-to-day reality that, yeah, some of these laws for them are just mere suggestions. So if they treat it that way at that ground level, imagine what they do with like the more serious stuff, like say real estate or having a business and shit like that, or even like tax evasion type shit. You know?
That is very real. I feel like a nobody, and just because of my networking, I cannot get a ticket in my hometown because of the connections. Not my hometown, but where I'm at now. They're like, oh no, I spoke to so-and-so and so-and-so, you'll never get a ticket here or here. And that has played out to be true. I should have, and I didn't. And I'm like, obviously it played out in my favor, but at the same time, I was looking at the bigger picture and I'm like, that is a little bit uncomfortable, because what are you guys brushing under the rug just because of connections?
So I guess last thing I would want to touch upon is something you talked about on the Whistle Pig podcast. You talked about your stance on the whole climate change thing. And I was curious to hear more about that from a perspective of someone who perhaps is not as knee deep into the tech world like I am, and give me a take on what are some of the companies you think are really doing the worst in terms of making this crisis more of a problem for the general population. You know?
Obviously Amazon is the big one. Not only because of where he spends his money, but because of all of the shipping and super fast, get this to your door tonight type vibe. I've been kind of removed from my climate researches, but I remember Nestle, and there's another one that made me mad. It's the baby brand, Johnson & Johnson. I don't even remember why, but I remember that they are responsible for so much of the fossil fuels emitted, that it was just frustrating. And it's like, my little footprint here, turning off my water super quick and turning off the lights if I'm not using them super quick. And I feel like in relations to that, it does nothing.
Yeah, that's wild. Because like for me, a level of understanding I've gained being in that industry I'm in is the fact that apparently Amazon essentially owns half of the internet, because a lot of these sites that we use, say Netflix or Instagram in that instance, they actually rely on Amazon to stay running, because they have this thing called AWS, which is basically a place where people go to rent virtual estate for them to run services on, so that they can say store data and stuff like that. So to see that such a company has such a monopoly on the very things that we use every day does not really sit well with me, and that's what led me to even want to join with these people that do more underground level work, where they do outreach to the communities that are most impacted by stuff like that, because the concept of gentrification is not only real, but also some industry push that more aggressively than others, and the tech industry in particular is one that's fairly known for displacing people at a very fast rate because of how much money they both generate, but also how much land grab that they're able to pull in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And it is the fact that it is a monopoly. Like, I feel like a lot of people aren't reliant on Amazon anymore, whether it's just like, this is the cheapest way to get my so-and-so for my company, or honestly, on my TikTok right now is a lot of, I think it's drop shipping that people are doing, but that's through Amazon, which no hate to them. They're trying to get their bag, but it's once again through Amazon. So I feel like so much goes through Amazon, and then you have to take in the what's it called, the something waste, electronic waste, maybe, which is you've probably heard of that, but really interesting thing to learn about. I didn't even know that was a thing or possible, but electronic waste is real and something that a lot of people aren't even aware of.
If you really want to get pissed off, look into the amount of laptops being thrown away every day that are perfectly in good working condition. They would just rather throw it away at a landfill somewhere and just have it sit there rather than say, oh, I don't know, donate it to like a school that may need that tool, or just disassemble it for parts and just recycle them. It's just like, for me, I feel like some of these things, assuming someone in charge had good intentions, they could do it in such a way where it's sustainable. But I don't know, like, it's at least here in America specifically, I really do feel like the way things are ran are so business minded that that's really the bottom line. It's profits over everything. So if there's no profits, then people will start to care a little bit more. So I'm hoping that by the time people do care, things don't collapse, because we've sort of had a taste of what that could look like in 2020.
Yeah, definitely. And Apple, because you brought up the laptops, Apple is a big one too, because of the way they, slow down their products once a new one is coming out. The resell, like, I have a iMac right now in my room that just today I went on and I was like, well, can I sell this to somebody? Because it's working perfectly. I just never use it. They were going to offer me $80 for it. So I get why there's so much waste, really, from a consumer standpoint, because what are you going to do with it? I mean, I know there's places you can probably donate it and whatnot, but they're not really sustainable. You have it for a month and then there's already a brand new one out and yours is worth nothing.
Yeah, technology. That's the part of technology I'm not as big of a fan of. I really do feel like, for one, why do we have so many cables for everything? Why can't we just have a universal cable that just matches with stuff? But no, we have to have a C port and USB port and whatever else port. And I looked into that, and a lot of it honestly comes down to lobbying. Just people with money saying, hey, like, we should get to do this, therefore we'll pay you, so that it's a thing. And I feel like laws in general do tend to go that route. And there's a similar thing currently happening too with strikes. I don't know if you're too tapped in with that, but basically a bunch of industries across the countries are currently either about to strike or are striking. Starbucks workers is one. A bunch of strippers in my area have successfully striked and have unionized. You know what that is?
No.
So to unionize essentially is this idea that the workers come together and make demands to their employers. So
union?
There we go. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know what that is. Is there one at the place you work at?
No.
Do you think they would benefit from having one, or is it more of a gray area?
I feel like that one may be a gray area because of so many independent contractors there. I know every club is different, but they're independent and they can make their own schedule and do whatever they want. And I think that's kind of to avoid the union, really.
Yeah, because having a union sort of ties you to certain restrictions, if you want to call it that.
Right.
So I get the appeal or lack of appeal, depending on who you ask. Because I was talking to a friend of mine who works in the music industry and who does documentaries for a living, scoring these films for people. He told me that actually he would not want to join a union because once you join a union, you have to play by certain rules, which, I don't know, in my head, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I'm like, why is it that union that supposedly advocates for people's rights is still making people stick with certain rules that under their own older models they have to stick by anyway, so it's like going from one abusive partner to the other.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually we talked about this on WhistlePig, and after that I brought it up with my group of friends. Part of networking there, it's a group of like real estate agents, and there's a lawyer in there, and landlords. And I brought up the union, and they immediately freaked out, arguing back and forth. I recorded some of it. I wish it was more recent so I would remember, but some of them were definitely saying, no, I don't want anything to do with the union, because then I wouldn't be able to do, I don't know, he ran his business a certain way and he just would not be able to do that through the union. I don't know if that's good or bad, but both sides felt very passionate of yes or no.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to for me. I feel like maybe you can relate with me on this one, but at our big old age, I think we're too old to be as passionate about things as we perhaps once used to be. Or if we do get passionate, we pick and choose what we get passionate about so that energy is not going to waste, And for me, I feel like in this country, there's so many things to have a raging passion for, which is I'm not mad about, but I do think that it's important for people to think about the consequence of their actions, right? Like in 2020, it was a trend for people to step outside and hold the BLM sign and all that stuff. And honestly, going off of how things have panned out since then, I'm not so sure that event actually has improved things for the better from that standpoint of bridging the gap between the Black communities of this country and the non-Black ones, because that's what people were hoping would happen, that we're seeing the consequences of racism in broad daylight and what that does to people, and finally people would wake up. But then you go asking around, like, hey, who do you know? Who are your Black friends? And they'll tell you, well, I don't have any of them. Really makes you think, like, why that is.
Right. I know. It's hard for me to know whether or not that did help, because I don't experience the daily struggles of being a person of color. So I don't really know firsthand, but I do know that because I went to a couple of the protests or whatnot in my surrounding areas, that it has revealed people's true colors around me. They were like, oh, I didn't know you were one of those. And it just made me, what? What do you mean one of those? Like, I'm literally just fighting for my family. I've 4 cousins of color. So I just felt like I was doing the right thing, trying to stand up for what was right. And then other people in my life were like, why did you go there? I didn't know you were like that, blah, blah. I thought we could be friends. So I feel both sides of that. Like, it kind of like created a hate I didn't know was there sometimes.
Yeah, I get that same comment from people who don't live in the area. And saying that, oh, you're one of those liberals. I'm like, my brother in Christ, I just live here.
Right. That's nice.
I don't get involved at that level where it's like a label or whatever else, that you want to apply to me is like the thing. If anything, to be honest, hopefully at some point I do end up moving out of this country and head out somewhere that perhaps I can be left alone, because I feel like for me it's just basically, especially online, I'm bombarded with imagery that is so depressing on a regular basis that it makes me not want to go online anymore. So I'm hoping that wherever I end up going to is going to have less of that. So I've considered Sweden, Japan, and France as like the place for me to be in terms of like not so much dealing with like US political bullshit. It's just that like I feel like from a social safety net kind of standpoint, I feel like these countries have like that figured out, you know, because for one, they're happy on the whole minimum wage stuff. Parental leave, they're big on that. They're way more aggressive about workers' rights as well, which is like a big thing for me. And it's just, in general, just having like something going for you in Europe means that you can do other things in other countries, because the way the travel stuff works is that if you have a passport from any of these countries, you get to travel basically anywhere else as part of the same European Union, right?
All right. And there's a program like the happiest country in the world.
One of them is, I know what you're talking about. It's not Sweden, it's actually somewhere else, but it's fairly close. It could be either Denmark or like some other place like that. But yeah, it's just like I actually heard a podcast about that. If I find it, I'll send the link to you. But basically, they talk about this idea that the same way there's like a way to measure the amount of money coming into a given country, you can also measure the amount of happiness per population going on. And yeah, what makes a happy population typically boils down to how accessible their cities are, so how easy to walk in they are, meaning how often they get access to healthcare, how often they get access to other ways to support themselves through school, how to support their family, and how easy it is to build communities, you know, in terms of making friends and having a network of people that don't just want to use you, know,
right?
Don't give a shit about you.
That are so rational.
Yeah, so Europe for sure has like a leg up on America in that sense, without a doubt. So yeah, that's what I find about. That's what about Europe I find attractive. But then again, people are still people. You know, people have prejudices no matter where you go, and that's gonna be a reality no matter where I end up being. But I think for me, as someone who was able to speak 5 languages, like I think it's gonna be an easier time for me to deal with, because I feel like that affords me the ability to just become a new person on the way if I feel like it.
Oh, that's awesome. I wish.
Well, if you ever want to pick up French or Japanese, by all means hit me up. I'll be able to like get you like some pointers to get started.
I will probably hit you up for French, because I took 5 years of it and then I completely fell off. So I won't be starting from
scratch.
Yeah.
It's so funny that I hear so many people say that. I don't know what that's about, to be honest, because for me, the way I think of languages, I think of it as like riding a bike, where I need to be on there to be able to be good at it. But I get that most people that took up a language in school perhaps did it as a way to get extra grades and stuff like that. But yeah, like it's just my time. I've done a fair bit of tutoring for families that had children that were from these countries. So that's kind of how I learned and picked up these languages and got better at them. But yeah, it's like a fairly untapped network if you want to look into it. Just tutoring for kids will put you in touch with people that you would never be in touch to otherwise.
Wow, I never thought of that. That would actually be like a really good start. I always wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up. I feel like I can communicate well to people in a way that they need to understand things. I should definitely use that for French, because I want to get back into it. I'll randomly watch this, like, it's like the Friends version of French version of Friends. Sorry, that was a mumble, but I'll put that on, and I still do understand quite a bit of it. I just need to like start teaching myself again.
Do you know if there's a community of immigrants in where you're at? It could be any community, by the way, not just French people or whatever.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a church nearby that opens up to, I think they call it the fledge, which kind of sounds like what you were referencing earlier, where they have the fridge you can fill up and stuff like that. Everything's free. But then they also, I think they just point you to the right direction to where to go when you go to the fledge. But a couple of immigrant groups. I think I'm pretty close to Detroit. So there's a couple Middle Eastern groups. And then I don't think there's a French one, but I don't even want to say because I don't want to be wrong.
Good to know. Well, you learn something new every day. I'll be sure to put that in my. If I ever go on tour again, and I stop by Detroit or Michigan, I'll definitely make sure to link up with. You said the Fledge. That's what it's called.
The Fledge.
The Fledge.
Yes.
Do you know how it's spelled?
FLEDGE.
Or EDDG. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that actually, because a thing I've heard about recently as well too is that the SICH, SIKH, they do a very similar thing where they'll casually cook like tons and tons of food and just give it all away every time.
Yeah, I think that happened one of those pretty recently. There was like tables full of just like, come get it.
Damn. Do you know what communities these people are part of, or is it just like people?
I don't. I actually met one of the organizers at breakfast. I just went out to get some pancakes alone, and it was one of those things. I just started talking, and he was like, "Oh, I'm actually about to go here and set up the tables," and I just kind of like quietly followed them. But I'm glad I did, because now I can plug them here.
Yeah, that's what's up. Like, if you can honestly keep in touch with these people, because you never know. You never know, like, not only who you might meet, but also the kinds of friends you might make in these kind of settings. Cause
exactly.
Having the ability to be cross-cultural and have that sort of relatability with other people, that's really how I think we solve the problems that this country is facing. Because people are just so accustomed to not do things as a community anymore that it's almost scary, you know? It's like everyone is about their bag, or everyone is about their career. And again, it's cool to be driven, but being driven to a toxic level can also happen. And that's where you get waves of people suffering, you know, depression and suicide and shit like that.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. I think community is huge. The fact that I feel comfortable going out alone and knowing I'm going to have a good, wholesome experience, I think that does numbers for my mental health. Whereas before I had social anxiety, I was like, I don't want people to judge me. I don't want whatever I was worried about. I think going out and about and being able to connect with people like that has done tremendous things for me.
Cool. So is there anything, because it's my custom usually, is there anything you want to plug in terms of stuff you got cooking up, or something you want to promote, or I don't know, whatever it is you want to do? So feel free and I'll include it.
Probably I'll just plug my Lil Earthlyn, which is on almost every platform except the one we're on now. So Lil Earthlyn on Snapchat, what I'm most active on. Instagram and TikTok, although I do not post yet. I would like to start.
Cool. I'm actually gonna go ahead and shoot you a follow on Snap real quick.
Yeah.
I go by a different name, and I'll let you know as soon as I hit you up there. But yeah, like that was I didn't really set up a big expectation for this one. It was more so of hey, I'm just catching up with someone that I'm sort of already familiar with, given that I've heard you speak for so long already. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that it was quote unquote useful or productive.
Yeah, no, it was. I'll be honest, I did minimal research before we connected, because I wanted it to be an authentic reaction and conversation. But it was really well, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing, because I appreciate how open-minded you are.
Yeah, you know what? That's something that I'm still in the midst of figuring out in terms of where this is gonna go moving forward. Because, like I said, I'm a writer first and podcaster second, so we'll see how that ends up being. But I will say, as a platform, it serves me really well. You know, I've been getting a lot of people hitting me up on the back channel saying, "Hey, how do you know so and so? How did you feature them?" And I'm like, "Cool, something is working."
Right.
So I'm hoping that, moving forward, things will move kind of like that. And who knows, maybe when I do get to a phase where I'm like Joe Rogan level, I'll maybe have like an actual set where I can invite you on or something.
That would be sweet. I'd love to be there.
Sick. On that note, really appreciate you for hopping on. Very dope having you there. And also, for the people listening after this, I definitely check out the Whistlepig stuff. Honestly, personally, it's one of my regular listens, mostly because it's like a very ground to earth, I guess you could say, approach to podcasting, where it's a guy, but it's not just like an average guy, just a guy that has like seen enough for them to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this shit out there, and if it resonates, it resonates, and kind of go from there. But yeah, like your cousin, if you ever talk to them again, like let them know that they've done a really terrific job with that platform that they've built on.
Yeah, I'd be happy to let him know. That means a lot. So thank you.
All right. So that will be it for today. Hope you're gonna be doing well, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch up later.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.